Chapter 322. Except for Miao Wentong, who knew about Tan Xiao, the others in the VIP lounge only knew about Tan Xiao through hearsay. Jin Xingkui's words, however, made them fall into silence. Terrifying, ruthless and merciless. Their perception of Tan Xiao had completely changed. Cough cough. Miao Wentong coughed twice and lightly said, "I've worked with Tan Xiao for some time, so I know a lot about him. He may be ruthless and merciless to his enemies, but he's very good to his friends. Therefore, he won't attack his friends as long as you don't deliberately oppose him. Brother Jin, you've done a good job today. At least, Tan Xiao approves of your performance. If you get along well with him in the future, it'll be easy to make friends with him." A trace of a smile appeared on Jin Xingkui's face as he nodded and said, "I was worried that Tan Xiao wouldn't be easy to get along with before. But after seeing him, I'm relieved. He's not that kind of evil person." Immediately, the smile on his face slowly disappeared and was replaced with a solemn expression as he said, "What I just said to you must not spread it out. Otherwise, not only will Tan Xiao bear a grudge against us, my cousin will also run into bad luck." "Rest assured." "Understood." They nodded, indicating that they wouldn't spread it out. Half an hour later, Miao Wentong escorted the three out of the everlasting feast hall, and then returned inside. Under Qi Nan's lead, he came to the general manager's office. A knock on the door awakened Tan Xiao from his rest. "Come in, Brother Miao." Tan Xiao got up from the sofa and said with a smile, "Brother Tang, you asked me to stay, so there must be something very important, right?" Miao Wentong said with a smile. "Tell me, is there any big plan to make a fortune that you want me to play with?" Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "How could there be so many big plans to make a fortune? Actually, I called you here because I want to ask you for a favor." Miao Wentong said, "What is it? Speak." Tan Xiao said, "We are both cultivators. I think you should know about tripod furnaces, right? It was not a cauldron used to refine pills, but a cauldron used to refine weapons. I'm preparing to refine some gadgets, but I don't have a suitable furnace, so I want to ask for your help to see where I can buy one." Miao Wentong frowned and said, "A furnace to refine weapons? Even if such a thing could be found, no one would sell it, right? Actually, I do know who has this kind of cauldron. As for whether he's willing to sell it, I can't say for sure." "Who has it?" Tan Xiao's expression changed as he hurriedly asked. Miao Wentong said, "You also know him, Dao Master Z." Tan Xiao was surprised. Dao Master Z actually has a weapon refining furnace? It seems that I need to contact him. If he is willing to sell the cauldron to me, I will give him a fair price. Miao Wentong shook his head and said, "Brother Tang, Dao Master Z regards money as dirt. If you want to buy it with money, I advise you to be prepared to be refused. As a matter of fact, I know what he lacks, but it's too difficult to find. It's extremely rare in this world." "What is it?" Tan Xiao quickly asked. Miao Wentong said, "Gu needles. It's best if you can gather a complete set of 18 gu needles." "What is that?" A confused look appeared in Tan Xiao's eyes as he asked, "Brother Miao, I've never heard of this kind of thing. What's its shape? What's its use?" Miao Wentong said, 18 gu needles, each with different shapes. Each of them has different length, curvature, as well as barbed hooks, lines, and other things. You should have heard about gu poison, right? Gu needles are treasures used to treat gu poison." Tan Xiao asked, "I know about gu poison. It's a poison that has been placed inside the body, and it contains an extremely strong poison. Why is Dao Master Z looking for gu needles?" Miao Wentong sighed. Dao Master Z's direct disciple, a smart and quick-witted little guy. More than half a year ago, he was traveling in the Miao region. Because he inadvertently offended a gu poison expert in the Miao region, he was poisoned by the gu poison expert. This gu poison is extremely rare and powerful. Even if Dao Master Z tried his best, he still couldn't expel the gu poison from the little guy's body. Me and Brother Xiao also tried, but we were still helpless. "I got it." A glint flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes. Since even Dao Master Z and Miao Wentong were helpless, he felt that even if he acted, his chances would not be big. After all, a lot of methods needed to be coordinated with his cultivation. His current cultivation was too low, and there was a big gap between him and the others. Suddenly, his expression moved as he remembered something. He immediately looked at Miao Wentong and said, "Brother Miao, I didn't leave Dao Master Zi's contact information. I think you should be able to contact him, right? Perhaps someone can expel the goo poison from his disciple's body." Miao Wentong quickly asked, "Who can expel it?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "An old friend of mine. I'll have to trouble Brother Tang to contact Dao Master Z. If it's convenient, tell him to bring his disciple to Shanghai." Miao Wentong nodded and said, "Although Dao Master Z has a mobile phone, he rarely uses it. Furthermore, he lives deep in the mountains, and there's no signal there. So be it. I'll contact the people there to find Dao Master Z. Once I find him, I'll tell him to bring his disciple to Shanghai immediately." Tan Xiu said, "Don't forget about the human cauldron." Miao Wentong said with a smile, "Don't worry. If your old friend can really cure his disciple, let alone the human cauldron, even if he wants something more precious, I'm afraid Dao Master Z will take it out." Subsequently, Tan Xiu and Miao Wentong chatted for a while. When Miao Wentong left, Ji Qimei's appearance appeared in Tan Xiu's mind. Ji Qimei was a member of the Succubus clan. Among the things that the Succubus clan was good at, there was the inheritance of witchcraft. Witchcraft was good at using goo and was also good at removing goo poisons. Given Ji Qimei's ability, it would be a piece of cake for her to remove the goo on Earth. Today, the reason why he talked to Miao Wentong alone was to get the human cauldron. He had already prepared the ores needed to refine the interspatial ring. The reason why he didn't start refining it until now was because he didn't have a human cauldron. "Boss, what about you?" Qi Nan stood at Tan Xiu's side and asked in a soft voice. Tan Xiu said, "There's nothing else. The restaurant's business here is very good and looks very prosperous. It's getting late, so I should go back." "Do you want me to send you back?" Qi Nan quickly asked. Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before he nodded and said, "Then send me back. Although there's nothing to do in the next few days, I still have to adapt to the life of a college student." A trace of a smile appeared on Qi Nan's face as she said, "Boss, I don't understand why you want to study at the university. In fact, with your identity, let alone a college student, if you want, you can casually build a very high-level university." Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, "Actually, I don't have any interest in studying at the university. But my mother's wish is for me to study at the university, and I don't want to disappoint her. However, studying at the university isn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, the sea of learning is boundless, and learning more things is always good for me." "Boss, you really don't want to be a young man, but more like a scholar." Qi Nan chuckled. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. The duo chatted while walking and quickly went out of the everlasting feast hall's entrance. Under Qi Nan's lead, they stopped in front of a black Lamborghini supercar in the parking lot. "What a good car." Tan Xiu liked the car's appearance and couldn't help but praise it. "Boss, you can drive this car at any time if you like it," said Qi Nan with a charming smile. "If you don't like it, I'll immediately order a new one for you." "Forget it." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said with a smile. "Although I also like cars, there are several cars parked at my place. Besides, this is Shanghai, a metropolis. Even if I have a sports car with a very high configuration, I'm afraid I have to drive it according to the speed limit, no? Driving a sports car in this kind of place is kind of a waste. You don't know about it, boss." Qi Nan covered her mouth and chuckled. Actually, there are a lot of second-generation nouveau riches in Shanghai who like to race cars. Although the speed limit in Shanghai is very high, Changshi City's Laoshan Highway is only a little more than an hour's drive away. It's the base of racing enthusiasts, and there are racing competitions almost every few days. Today is September 1st, and it seems like there's also a racing competition there. It's very exciting. Racing on Laoshan Highway should be very dangerous, right? Tan Xiu was surprised. Furthermore, the traffic department doesn't care about it? Logically speaking, racing competitions are not allowed there, said Qi Nan with a smile. But some people have eyes and ears, so the traffic department can only turn a blind eye to it. Those who can go there to race are almost all rich people. Even if there's an accident, there will be someone to deal with it. Tan Xiu hesitated and asked, "Is the racing competition really exciting? What time does it usually start?" "It's really exciting," said Qinan. "I've been there several times, and even the king racer Mu Zi was crushed by me. I bought this car with the money I won there. As for the competition time, it usually starts at 10 p.m. Tan Xiu looked at the time and found that there was only half an hour left before 10 p.m. He shook his head and smilingly said, "Although I really want to go there to experience it, it seems like I don't have enough time. Forget it." "Boss, I can call Muzi if you want to go there to play," said Qinan quickly. "Racing competitions are often delayed due to special circumstances. Besides, Muzi owes me a big favor, so I'm sure he can do it if I call him." "What's Muzi's background?" asked Tan Xiu. "He's the local tyrant of Changxi City, and his family is very powerful," said Qinan. "Whether it's in the political or business circles, there are elders in his family. That's why Laoshan Highway has been under his management for 6 or 7 years, and it's still smoothly under his control." Upon hearing it, Tan Xiu stared blankly and hesitantly said, "If it's possible, then call him." "No problem." Qinan nodded with a smile. After saying that, she quickly took out her mobile and dialed a cell number. "Quiet Night's WeChat account will be raining red packets tomorrow. Brothers and sisters who don't follow Quiet Night's WeChat account, hurry up. Quiet Night's WeChat account is JYGS00, or search for Quiet Night Thoughts, and follow Quiet Night's WeChat account. Quiet Night will update the Immortal World's news on it every week, and will interact with it in a timely manner. Also, there will be red packets raining from time to time. _. Chapter 323. Changxi City. Halfway up the Laoshan Highway, a large and spacious square had been developed. Dozens of searchlights in the surroundings brightly illuminated the entire square. On the square, hundreds of young men and women, dressed in fancy clothes, were pacing back and forth between several rows of temporary long tables. The long tables were filled with all kinds of wine and delicacies. Some men and women were enjoying the wine and delicacies while chatting in groups of 3 to 5, looking very lively. Around the square, in addition to various types of vehicles, there were dozens of luxury supercars parked a little further in. Some people were holding wine glasses and sitting on the hood of the supercars, while some were hugging hot girls and leaning on the doors. On a long table filled with fine wine and delicacies, a man in his 30s was hugging a hot girl in his arms and chatting merrily with several young men. He was Jimu, also known as Muzi. Ring ring, ring, Jimu's mobile phone rang, but he couldn't hear the sound due to the noisy surroundings. However, he could sense the vibration. When he took out his mobile and saw the caller's name on the screen, he stared blankly for a moment. He immediately let go of the hot girl's slender waist and gestured to the other young men to keep quiet. Then he picked up the call and smilingly said, "Big sis Nan, you're such a busy man. How come you suddenly remembered to call me? Is there a car race on the Laoshan Highway tonight?" Chinan's voice came out of the phone. "Yeah." Jimu laughed. "There's still half an hour before the race starts. Big sis Nan, do you also want to come and play? Let's postpone it for an hour," said Chinan. "I'm bringing a very important person there to play. I'll be there before 11 o'clock. "A very important person?" Jimu stared blankly for a moment before he immediately said with a smile, "Big sis Nan, I've been looking forward to seeing you. I hope you can come and support me. Don't worry. I'll inform the people to postpone tonight's race for an hour." "That's right. Can I ask in advance who the very important person you brought tonight is?" "You don't need to ask. In short, just treat him better than you treat me," said Chinan. The expression on Jimu's handsome face changed a few times as he listened to the busy tone coming from the phone. He knew Chinan's identity. She was the vice manager of the Everlasting Feast Hall in Shanghai, a very capable woman. In particular, his racing skills left him in the dust. A few professional racers from Hong Kong had beaten up the racing enthusiasts in the nearby cities. Even he, who was known as the king of racers, had been beaten up badly. He had lost all his face. He had no choice but to call Chinan for help. In the end, Chinan had put in a lot of effort, but in the end, she had beaten the professional racers from Hong Kong and saved their face. Come to think about it, he really owed Qi Nan a big favor. Monkey passed down the order. Tonight's race will be postponed for an hour. Jimu took out a cigarette, lit it, and said after taking a deep puff. The lean youth, who was called Monkey, had an excited expression on his face as he asked, Boss Ji, was it Sister Nan who just called you? She wants to come over to play? She's coming. I heard that she's bringing someone very important to her to play. Jimu nodded. So tell them that the match will start at 11 o'clock. Monkey forced a smile and said, Boss Ji, I'm afraid Li Jun won't be happy about this, right? I believe you know why he's here today. It's to avenge the fiasco from more than a month ago. I heard that he invited a professional racer from Hong Kong. That guy once won the championship in the Asian Racing Championship. I've also heard about that guy, said Jimu with a solemn expression. He's known as the god of cars in Hong Kong. He's only a little bit worse than Aji, who won the championship 7 times in the World Racing Championship. I've been prepared to lose, but I didn't expect that Sister Nam would suddenly come. If she's here, we might have a 50% chance of winning. I hope we can win, said Monkey. A few minutes later, a group of young men and women clustered around a white-haired youth with a perm hairstyle came before Jimu and the others. Brother Ji, I heard that you're going to postpone the race for an hour? Are you afraid of losing miserably, so you went to find some outside help? Haha. I'll tell you, even if you find some outside help, I'm afraid there's only one ending for you. A crushing and miserable defeat. The youth looked at Jimu with a provocative and arrogant expression. Victory and defeat are common occurrences for a soldier, said Jimu indifferently. Even if we lose today, it'll only be the first time. But for you, if you lose again today, it'll be a continuous disgrace. Li Jun, if I were you, I'd just wait for the race to start. Don't be too arrogant, else you'll be disgraced even more if you lose. Li Jun rolled his eyes and mocked. I lost once because I was careless. If you win this time, I'll never step into this place again. Jimu nodded and said, I've prepared 20 million. Take the money if you can win. Li Jun rolled his eyes and said, Jimu, since you want to change the race time, then I also have a condition. Let's double the bet. Do you dare? It's only 40 million even if I double it, said Jimu with a faint smile. Whatever. Li Jun proudly said. If that's the case, then just wait for the money to be handed over to me. I'll also tell the other contestants about this news. If they want to continue gambling, they can only take out 20 million. Whoever wins will get 80 million from us. Jimu was not short of money. He could earn hundreds of millions of yuan every year by running the racing gambling race here. Coupled with the fact that he played from time to time, he had also won a lot of money. Therefore, 40 million and 20 million were not much different to him. Neither was a big sum of money. For people like him, who had status and background, money was sometimes not as important as face. Especially in the circle of debauches, face was the most important thing. Time fleeted by. At 10:40 a.m., a black Lamborghini supercar roared into the square. Its wonderful drifting attracted the attention of most people in the square. Jimu, along with a group of young men and women, quickly walked toward the Lamborghini. Then he saw Qi Nan in the driver's seat. She quickly opened the door, and then trotted to the front passenger seat, and opened the door herself. Immediately after, they saw a young man coming down from the car with a smile on his face. Who is he? Among the hundreds of people present, 70% to 80% of them knew Qi Nan. They also knew that she was the deputy manager of Shanghai's Everlasting Feast Hall. Yet, they found it hard to believe that the usually arrogant and glamorous Qi Nan would actually act as a driver for someone else. She even opened the door for that person under the watchful eyes of the public, looking like she was her subordinate. Li Jun also knew Qi Nan. He also knew that she once participated in a racing competition here, and won against several professional racers from Hong Kong. However, he was very confident in the little car god he invited this time, so he didn't put Qi Nan in his eyes. Who are they? The young man standing next to Li Jun asked coolly. Huan Yu, that woman is Qi Nan, the one I once told you about, said Li Jun. She once won against several professional racers from Hong Kong. As for that kid beside her, I've never seen him before. Huan Yu nodded and said, I've fought against those guys who raced against Qi Nan before. They are very powerful. Even if I want to win against them, I have to go all out. That Qi Nan can win against them, so I'm afraid she's not much worse than me. But you can rest assured that I'll help you win this race tonight, since I've accepted your money. You're known as the little car god, said Li Zhan with a smile. I'm very confident in you to win this race. Come on, I'll treat you to a drink after the race. No problem, said Huan Yu coolly. Ji Mu came to Qi Nan and Tan Xiu with a group of young men and women. A warm look appeared on his face as he called out, "Hello, big sis Nan. And this is..." Tan Xiu stepped forward, stretched out his hand and said with a smile, "I'm Tan Xiu. You can consider me as a passerby. Did I disturb you by coming here to play tonight?" Ji Mu shook hands with Tan Xiu and said with a smile, "Not at all. You're big sis Nan's friend, so you're also my friend. I'm more than happy that you can come here to play. To tell you the truth, I've only watched racing competitions on TV before. This is my first time seeing it in real life," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Can I join you in the race later?" "You've never seen it in real life?" Ji Mu stared blankly with a strange expression on his face. He originally looked forward to Qi Nan bringing a more powerful racer. Even if he had to thicken his face and beg her, or even spend some money, he still wanted to ask her to help him win tonight's bet. But he didn't expect that the other party had never played before. "Yeah, I've never seen her before," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "It's all right. The most important thing is to participate," said Ji Mu with a dry smile. After that, he turned to look at Qi Nan and forced a smile. "Big sis Nan, how about you join us tonight? Some people are coming to make trouble, and the other party's background is not small. I'm afraid we'll lose if you don't join the race." Qi Nan glanced at Tan Xiu and said, "I'm here to accompany you, not to gamble." Ji Mu looked at Tan Xiu with an awkward expression. He found that Qi Nan attached great importance to Tan Xiu, so he could only beg Tan Xiu to let Qi Nan participate in tonight's bet. "Since she has asked, then let's play," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "But we only drove one car here. We don't seem to have enough cars for the race." "I'll give my car to big sis Nan," said Ji Mu quickly. "Then I'll play." Qi Nan nodded. "Winning or losing has nothing to do with me. I'll just do my best." "I'm relieved to hear big sis Nan say that you'll do your best," said Ji Mu with a smile. "You can rest assured that I'll pay for the bet. If I win, the money will be yours. But if I lose, I'll be fully responsible for it." "You still have money to gamble?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "How big is the bet?" Ji Mu said with a smile. "The original bet was 20 million per person. But Li Zhan insisted on fighting me to the death and raised the bet to 40 million. As for the others, it's still 20 million. It's the end of the month. Brothers and sisters, please throw your monthly tickets to Jingye. Chapter 324. Tan Xiu was a bit surprised upon hearing this. Didn't Ji Mu say that he was very powerful in Changxi? How could there be someone who dared to come here to make trouble? After he asked the question in his heart, he finally understood the whole story. He suddenly understood and smilingly said, "There are fights wherever there are people, so it's normal for us to gamble a little. We won't take advantage of you. If we lose, we'll take out 20 million just like the others. If we win, the gambling money will belong to us." Ji Mu stared blankly for a moment. Gambling a little? Taking out 20 million is considered as a small gamble? All of a sudden, he was deeply curious about Tan Xiu's identity. When he looked at Qi Nan with an inquiring look, Qi Nan smiled and said, "I have no objection." "If that's the case, then it's decided." Ji Mu nodded. "Brother Tang, this is your first time coming here, so you're not familiar with the racetrack, right? How about you drive around first to familiarize yourself with the track, and then we'll start." "Is there enough time?" asked Tan Xiu. "Let's drive around the entire Laoshan Highway. If we're fast enough, we can finish it in 10 minutes, said Ji Mu. "Then I'll drive around." Tan Xiu nodded. "Qi Nan, accompany me to drive around." "All right." Qi Nan nodded. "There's still 15 minutes left before 11 o'clock. I want to know if you can drive around within the time limit. I'm afraid the others won't be happy if it affects the race. Surrounded by a group of people, Li Zhen arrived with a sneer on his face. He observed Tan Xiu for a while before his eyes fell on Qi Nan. Qi Nan, you've been here before. How long did you take to drive around Laoshan Highway? Asked Tan Xiu. 11 minutes and 45 seconds, answered Qi Nan. That should be about the same, said Tan Xiu with a smile. If I can't drive around Laoshan Highway in 15 minutes, I'm afraid there's no point for me to participate in this race. That's right, judging from your appearance, you should be the core figure of this group, right? How should I address you? Li Zhen. I'll remember your name. Tan Xiu nodded. If I lose today's match, I'll give you 40 million. But if you lose, can you promise me something? What is it? Asked Li Zhen with a frown. Tan Xiu said, if I win, you must immediately avoid me when you see me in the future. Li Zhen's eyebrows twitched as a bright light burst out from his eyes. He could faintly discern the hidden meaning in Tan Xiu's words. It seemed like he had a grudge with him in the past. Do we know each other? Li Zhen asked. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, I don't know him. Li Zhen frowned and said, then you. It's nothing, said Tan Xiu lightly. I'm a person who is afraid of trouble. And someone like you who's a spoiled brat will easily stir up trouble. If you stay away from me, we won't have any conflicts in the future. A mocking expression appeared on Li Zhen's face as he said, you're really farsighted. I promise you that if I lose, I'll avoid you when I see you in the future. Tan Xiu slightly nodded and gestured to Qi Nan. Then he walked toward the black Lamborghini supercar. Familiarize himself with the operation. Start. Although Tan Xiu had just obtained his driver's license and hadn't been driving for a long time, he was very good at driving. As long as he could familiarize himself with the operation, it would be easy for him to speed up. After all, his eyesight and reaction speed were far beyond that of ordinary people. Along with the humming sound of the engine, the Lamborghini instantly sped forward. Qi Nan, you know this road. Tell me what I need to pay attention to. On the front passenger seat, Qi Nan nodded and said, no problem. We'll keep moving around Mount Lao after we enter the road. There's a fence on the edge of the road, so we won't fall off the cliff as long as we don't directly rush out. Boss, just speed up. I'll tell you in advance when we're about to turn or slope. All right. Tan Xiu held the steering wheel with one hand and moved the gear with the other hand. The accelerator was getting lower and lower with each increase of gear. Under the dim yellow street lights, the Lamborghini's speed quickly reached 100 kilometers per hour. After maintaining this speed for 2 minutes, Tan Xiu began to speed up again. There's a U-turn ahead, boss. Qi Nan quickly reminded him. Tan Xiu nodded. Although the street lights were not very bright, his eyes were particularly sharp. With the familiar operation, the car quickly reached 160 kilometers per hour. How do you do those drifting cars on TV? Asked Tan Xiu all of a sudden. Qi Nan stared blankly and asked in surprise, you don't even know how to drift, boss? I've never raced before, so how would I know about drifting? Tan Xiu said with a smile. Besides, I just got my driver's license about 2 months ago. Apart from being familiar with the operation of several models, I haven't driven any other cars. For example, this is my first time driving a sports car. Qi Nan was somewhat speechless. She really couldn't understand why Tan Xiu would bet with Li Zhen when he had never driven a sports car before. Even if 40 million yuan was just a small amount of money, he didn't need to lose money and face at the same time, right? Boss, drifting is a kind of driving technique, also known as side slip, tire slip, or tail flick. The driver oversteers, when the hand brake and foot brake are applied at the same time, abruptly turns the steering wheel to change the direction of the car. When preparing to drift, you must have an accurate judgment of the road ahead and your feet. While driving the car, Tan Xiu listened to Qi Nan's explanation. Gradually, he had a certain understanding of drifting. Since he had just bypassed the U-shaped road, he accelerated again and was ready to try drifting. Creak. The rapid tail flick caused the tires to violently rub against the ground, causing the car to move sideways. In just a few seconds, Tan Xiu completed an imperfect drifting. Even during the drifting process, he almost hit the mountain wall on the side. Not bad. Sitting in the driver's seat, Qi Nan's complexion was a bit pale. but she still sincerely sighed. After all, it was Tan Xiu's first time driving a sports car, and it was also his first time practicing drifting. It was already very rare that he didn't get into an accident on such a dangerous mountain road. Tan Xiu was also a bit nervous just now, but his nervousness vanished after the car completely stopped. Upon hearing Qinan's praise, he blushed with shame. After starting the car again and moving forward, he tried 4 or 5 more times. Awesome! When Tan Xiu tried for the last time, Qinan couldn't help but exclaim. She had a very keen sense of movement, and Tan Xiu tried 5 or 6 times. Each attempt was better than the last. Even this time, Tan Xiu was almost able to drift with ease. Driving the car at more than 200 kilometers per hour, Tan Xiu smiled and said, "I'm not proficient enough. If I can drive a few more laps, I'm afraid I'll be able to adapt completely. In fact, this drifting technique is very simple. All it needs is precise judgment, the combination of speed and braking, as well as the steering wheel rotation." Boss, if I didn't know that you've never driven a sports car before and never tried drifting before, I would have thought that you're a racing expert. Just your last attempt alone made me think that you're a racing expert. Your learning speed is really amazing. I've never seen a driver improve faster than you. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Don't flatter me. Let's see how long we have left, shall we?" The smile on Qinan's face widened. She looked at the time and said, "It's 10:57 now, 3 minutes to the finish line. Boss, with your current speed, you won't be able to finish the remaining distance in 3 minutes. Unless..." Upon hearing it, Tan Xiu immediately sped up a bit and asked, "Unless what?" "Unless you increase the speed to the extreme," said Qinan. "Sit tight," Tan Xiu shouted in a low voice. He instantly stepped on the accelerator pedal, and the speed soared in an instant. At this moment, Tan Xiu's spirit was highly concentrated. He instantly released his spiritual sense, and sensed the range of 200 to 300 meters ahead. The speed was very fast. 200 to 300 meters might be crossed in the blink of an eye, but being able to perceive the road ahead in advance was definitely an excellent aid when racing at such a high speed, especially when turning a corner. On the square halfway up the Laoshan Highway, everyone was eagerly waiting. "Big Brother Ji, do you think Tan Xiu can return within the specified time?" "There are only 2 minutes left before 11 o'clock, asked the skinny and monkey-like monkey in a low voice with a worried look on his face. "You ask me, but who should I ask?" Jimu slowly said. "If Tan Xiu has never touched a racing car before, it'll be very difficult for him to return within the specified time. Plus, it's his first time racing on the Laoshan Highway, and he's not familiar with the terrain, so I don't have much hope. I really don't get it. Why does he want to bet with Li Zhan? Could it be that they have a grudge before?" Jimu glanced at him and lightly said, "There shouldn't be any grudge between them. Didn't you hear Tan Xiu's answer to Li Zhan's question before? I guess it's because he doesn't like Li Zhan." "Just because he doesn't like him, not only did he lose money, but he also sent his face to be slapped," muttered Monkey. "Could it be that he's stupid?" "The world is so big that nothing is too strange," said Jimu. "So it's normal for some strange and eccentric youngsters to appear." "Eccentric and eccentric?" Monkey let out a hollow laugh and no longer spoke. On the other side, a faint smile hung on the corner of Li Zhan's mouth. He raised his wrist and looked at the hands on his watch. He was really curious whether Tan Xiu could come back within the specified time. "Young Master Li, I don't think we need to wait anymore." Huan Yu still wore a cool expression as he spoke with his hands in his trouser pockets. "Why do you say that?" Li Zhan asked with a smile. "Did you forget that it took me 14 minutes to drive a lap the first time I familiarized myself with the track?" Huan Yu said. "If that guy can really come back within the specified time, his driving skills can be compared to mine." Li Zhan shook his head and smilingly said, "Actually, it's still possible for him to come back within the specified time. Because it was his first time familiarizing himself with the road on the Laoshan Highway, but he was able to rush back within 15 minutes. Even I couldn't compare to you back then." Tan Xiu smiled and said, "You flatter me. Just relax a bit. We'll get ready to start later," said Jimu. There were a total of 7 people participating in the night race. Aside from Tan Xiu and Qi Nan, there were only Li Zhen and Huan Yu. As for the other three, Tan Xiu didn't know them. Ji Mu originally wanted to participate in the race himself, but he lent his car to Qi Nan, so he acted as the referee. Each of the 7 luxury supercars was worth more than millions. It looked quite spectacular when they stopped in front of a horizontal line. Ready? Ji Mu held a small colorful flag in his hand. As he blew the whistle, the colorful flag also fell with a wave of his arm. In a flash, the engines of the 7 supercars roared as they rushed toward the exit of the square like arrows leaving the bowstring. Tan Xiu drove his black Lamborghini supercar. The speed was not fast at first, and he was the 7th to rush out of the square's exit. However, since he had already memorized the road conditions of the Laoshan Highway, coupled with the fact that Qi Nan's sports car had an extremely high configuration and was full of power, he accelerated the moment he entered the Laoshan Highway. I must be at least in the top 3 before the U-turn. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and accurately controlled the steering wheel and gear shift. When he pushed the gear to the highest, he also pushed the accelerator to the maximum. He overtook the Porsche supercar in front of him in just half a minute, and 2 minutes later, he overtook another supercar. Qi Nan's driving skills are good. Tan Xiu looked at the situation of the 4 supercars in front of him, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. As the scenery on both sides passed by, he accelerated the speed of the car. Soon, when the U-turn road was in front of him, he fiercely turned the steering wheel, released the gear, and used both the foot and hand brakes. After a beautiful drift, he took advantage of the gap between a supercar and the cliff to step on the accelerator and overtook it in the drift. Ahead, the red Ferrari supercar driven by Li Zhen was desperately trying to catch up with the 2 cars in front. He knew that the 2 drivers in front were Huan Yu and Qi Nan. At the moment, Huan Yu was first, and Qi Nan was second. I have to catch up. Even if I can't beat Huan Yu, I have to beat Qi Nan. Li Zhen gritted his teeth, turned the steering wheel, and stepped on the accelerator a little bit lower. However, when he was desperately trying to catch up with Qi Nan's car in front of him, the black Lamborghini had already appeared behind him with a beautiful drift. Moreover, what caused Li Zhen to be slightly distracted was that the speed of the black Lamborghini supercar was faster than his speed on the curved road. In just 2 seconds, he was overtaken by the Lamborghini supercar. Damn it! The driver is Tan Xiu. Li Zhen was furious, and he stepped on the accelerator to the end. Time flew by. Relying on his skilled driving skills, accurate judgment, and extraordinary reflexes, Tan Xiu had left Li Zhen behind in 5 minutes. And the Lamborghini he was driving was also tightly following the tail of Qi Nan's car. The road ahead is an S-shaped road, a good opportunity to overtake. After the S-shaped road, there are 2 U-shaped roads, one small and one big and one small. In other words, I have 3 chances to overtake the 2 cars in front. Tan Xiu, who had just relaxed a lot on the accelerator, once again stepped on it. While Qi Nan and Huan Yu were chasing each other, constantly sprinting and blocking each other, he accurately determined the direction and route of the 2 cars. Sprint. Tan Xiu stepped on the accelerator, passing through the gap between the 2 cars. Suddenly, he was in a straight line with the sports car driven by Huan Yu. In addition, the position of the black Lamborghini was against the side of the mountain wall, while the sports car driven by Huan Yu was against the guardrail on the cliff. Except for the last U-shaped road, I don't need to slow down even if it's S-shaped road. Tan Xiu revealed a smile. After sprinting side by side with Huan Yu for half a minute, he finally overtook Huan Yu in the S-shaped road. However, what made him feel a little helpless was that he was overtaken by Huan Yu at the small U-turn in front of him with his superb driving skills. There's still one last chance left. Tan Xiu's eyes slightly narrowed. At this moment, Qi Nan's sports car suddenly rushed up. She maintained the same speed as the Lamborghini. Inside the sports car, Qi Nan looked a bit worried. Tan Xiu's speed was too fast. She tried her best, but she could barely catch up with him. Moreover, the sports car's configuration was slightly better than her Lamborghini. It must be known. Tan Xiu was the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall, her big boss. She would rather Tan Xiu lose the race than have an accident in the race. But Tan Xiu's speed could easily cause an accident. She couldn't let anything happen to Tan Xiu. Because if something happened to Tan Xiao, not only would it ruin her chance, but she would also be severely punished by the Everlasting Feast Hall's top management. She might even lose her life. I have to think of a way. I can't let anything happen to boss even if I have to make that sports car crash off the cliff. Thinking up to there, Qinan steeled her heart and stepped on the gas pedal to the bottom. After overtaking Tan Xiao's Lamborghini, she quickly chased after Huan Yu's sports car. In front of them was the largest U-shaped road, which was also the most likely place to have an accident. However, Qinan found that Tan Xiao's Lamborghini didn't slow down at all. A chilling light burst out from her eyes. Squeak, she squeezed the guardrail on the edge of the cliff. Tan Xiao's pupils suddenly shrunk. He could clearly see the situation of the two sports cars in front of him, and faintly guessed Qinan's thoughts. Just as Qinan's sports car was half a car ahead, Huan Yu's sports car also fell into the most dangerous situation. Sigh. Tan Xiao sighed in his heart, and stepped on the gas pedal to the bottom again. At the moment when Huan Yu suddenly braked, the car deviated from the track, and was about to crash into the guardrail of the cliff. Tan Xiao's car slammed into the right side of Huan Yu's sports car, causing the sports car to instantly turn around. Tan Xiao's divine sense frantically wrapped the entire Lamborghini sports car. Although he only managed to avoid the danger of the Lamborghini turning over, he took advantage of the momentary gap to dash out. The tires rubbed against the ground. At the moment when Huan Yu stepped on the brakes, the sports car finally slid for dozens of meters before it came to a dangerous stop against the cliff wall. At this moment, his face was faintly pale. The crisis of death at such a close distance caused him to break out in a cold sweat. He was a professional racer, so he understood the speed of the car and the terrain just now. He knew that with Qinan squeezing just now, if there was no accident, his car would have crashed over the guardrail and fallen off the cliff. As for the sports car driven by Tan Xiao, after the accidental collision, the car he was driving spun back to the road. Qinan wanted to kill him, but Tan Xiao wanted to save him. Huan Yu, who was proficient in racing skills, had a bitter smile on his face. He just did it for money, but he didn't expect that he would almost get himself killed. He suddenly regretted agreeing to Li Zhen's participation in this race. Today's second update. Chapter 326. Swoosh. A sports car stopped in front of Huan Yu's car. Li Zhen's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the sports car parked beside him. He looked at Huan Yu, who was sitting in the driver's seat with a pale face. What was going on? Shouldn't Huan Yu be ranked first? Why did he stop? Could it be? Is there a problem with the sports car? Li Zhen looked ahead and found that the two sports cars driven by Tan Xiao and Qinan were nowhere to be seen. His heart fell to the bottom at this moment. He angrily pushed open the door and ran to the front and back of Huan Yu's driver's door. He opened the door and shouted, "What's going on? Why did you stop halfway?" Huan Yu walked out of the driver's seat. He pointed at the tire marks on the ground and lightly said, "If it wasn't for Tan Xiao, I would have been dead by now." What? Li Zhen's heart shook as he looked at the surrounding car tracks. After careful observation, he was shocked to discover that Huan Yu's car had been spinning. The friction between the tires and the ground proved that the sports car had been thrown dozens of meters away before finally coming to a stop. The starting point of the mark was the guardrail of the cliff. Li Zhen strode to the front of the sports car driven by Huan Yu. When he saw that the right side of the car had been damaged from the impact with the guardrail, his expression immediately changed. "Huan Yu, your driving skills." Huan Yu shook his head and said, "It's not my driving skill. I didn't expect Qinan to be so cruel and merciless. She wanted to kill me." Li Zhen's heart shook, and a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. "Why?" Huan Yu bitterly smiled. "I don't have an answer either. If I were to guess a reason, it would be that she wants to win." Li Zhen was silent. Given the choice between losing the match and letting Huan Yu die, perhaps the scales could only be balanced, with each side having a 50% chance of success. Therefore, while his heart was filled with disappointment, it was also filled with contradictions. "Let's go." With a heart full of complex emotions, Li Zhen turned and walked toward his sports car. In the square, hundreds of racing enthusiasts were eagerly waiting. There were even young men and women gathered in groups of 3 to 5, discussing who would win and who would lose this race. I think that Huan Yu will definitely win the competition. He was a professional driver and had won several championships in the Asian Racing Championships. Even in the World Championships, he was the runner-up. I also think that Huan Yu has a higher chance of winning. There was a big difference between professional drivers and amateurs. Qinan was able to beat a few professional racers who weren't that famous, but she might not be able to beat the racer god. I don't think so. I think Qinan has a higher chance of winning. What do you think that guy named Tan Xiu will get? Last place? Or the second to last? He just used nearly 15 minutes to drive one lap. Although he's familiar with the track, I don't think he'll be that good on the second lap. That guy is a fool. In the end, he lost money and still made a fool of himself. I wonder where he came from. Amidst the chatter, 2 headlights shone in the distance. In an instant, the entire square became silent. Pairs of eyes stared at the approaching sports car. It's Boss G's sports car driven by Qi Nan. That's great. Sister Nan got the first place. A young man beside Ji Mu immediately shouted after he recognized the car. That's right. In an instant, the entire square burst into an uproar. Those who were full of confidence and thought that Qi Nan was not as good as Huan Yu had their complexions turn extremely ugly. They felt that their remarks just now were really shameful. Look, there's another one behind. Everyone's eyes shifted to the second car. When they saw the black Lamborghini supercar, each and every one of them was dumbfounded, their eyes bursting with disbelief. Tan Xiu? The person driving the black Lamborghini was Tan Xiu. For a moment, everyone's eyes widened. Their eyeballs almost fell out of their eye sockets. They really couldn't believe that the second place turned out to be Tan Xiu. How is this possible? Many people shouted one after another. If Qinan won the first place, they could barely accept it. But Tan Xiu unexpectedly won the second place. This was unacceptable to them. After all, Tan Xiu had never raced here before. He just familiarized himself with the track, yet he could beat the Asian racer god. Wasn't this too heaven-defying? 2 minutes later, Li Zhen and Huan Yu came back in their sports car. Their complexions were a bit unsightly. Just as they got off the car and looked at Tang Xiu and Qi Nan, who had already gotten off the car, the 2 of them strode over. At this moment, the other 3 supercars arrived. Qi Nan, what's the meaning of this? With an angry face, Li Zhen sternly asked. What about me? Qi Nan indifferently said. You can't accept your loss? Li Zhen angrily shouted. This is just a car race, not a murder. Do you know that because of you, Huan Yu almost drove his car off the cliff and died? Racing itself is dangerous. Don't play if you're afraid of death. Qi Nan sneered. You. Huan Yu raised his hand to interrupt Li Zhen. He then looked at Tan Xiu and said, Just now thanks. Tan Xiu shook his head and lightly said, It's nothing. I just don't want people to die because of a car race. However, it's better to play less of this kind of race in the future. After all, you only have one life. How can you not wet your shoes if you often walk by the river? Huan Yu nodded and said, I'll keep that in mind. I owe you a favor this time. You can contact me if you need me in the future. Let's exchange our contact information. I don't think we'll have any more contact in the future. Tan Xiu waved and said, Let's forget about exchanging contact information. To be honest, racing is indeed very exciting and thrilling. But I'm not going to play this kind of dangerous game again. After saying that, he then looked at Qi Nan and lightly said, Go pay the bill. I'll wait for you in the car. All right. Qi Nan was keenly aware that Tan Xiu was a bit unhappy. However, she didn't regret her action. Although she was shocked by Tan Xiu's driving skills and the fact that he was able to save Huan Yu in such a dangerous situation, but for Tan Xiu's safety, she had to do it even if she made her boss unhappy. Her boss's life. For her at the moment, it was more important than anything else. Tan Xiu then looked at Li Zhen and lightly said, Do you still remember our bet before? You lost, so you have to hide as far as you can when you see me later. Li Zhen's complexion turned pale. He angrily stared at Tan Xiu and asked in a deep voice, Can you tell me that we really have no enmity before? There's no enmity between us. Tan Xiu indifferently said, I just saw you. But I don't like your bossy and domineering character. Li Zhen stared blankly for a moment. He frowned and asked, "Where did you see me?" "At the entrance of Shanghai University," Tan Xiao said. "You mean this morning?" Li Zhen said. "All right, that's all in the past," Tan Xiao indifferently said. "In short, I don't like you. Don't appear in front of me anymore. That's all. Goodbye." After that, Tan Xiao went straight back to his black Lamborghini. Ji Mu originally wanted to chat with Tan Xiao, but after seeing Tan Xiao enter the car, he had no choice but to give up the idea. He was ready to find an opportunity to befriend Tan Xiao in the future. "Big Sis Nan, what's the origin of this Tan Xiao? To think that he's worthy of you personally accompanying him here?" With a curious look, Ji Mu asked in a whisper. "You'd better not ask about his origin," said Qi Nan indifferently. "Also hurry up and handle it for me. I must go back immediately." Ji Mu forced a smile and said, "Big Sis Nan, you don't need to be so secretive. Tell me about this Tan Xiao's origin, so that I can figure out what kind of attitude I should take to make friends with him." "I told you that you'd better not know about him," said Qi Nan indifferently. "Unless he's willing to make friends with you. Ji Mu, it's not that I'm trying to scare you, but you'll be in big trouble if you dare to investigate his identity in private. If he gives the order, even I will deal with you, including your family. So don't court disaster for your family, and don't look for trouble for yourself." Ji Mu's expression slightly changed. He didn't believe that Qi Nan was just trying to scare him. So to speak, this Tan Xiao's identity was really terrifying? Even his Ji family couldn't afford to provoke him? Immediately, he no longer asked and quickly paid the money. 10 minutes later, Qi Nan returned to the Lamborghini with a bank card. When she sat on the front seat, she respectfully handed the bank card to Tan Xiao and said, "Boss, this is the gambling money we won tonight. It's all in here. You're the champion, so the money is naturally yours." Tan Xiao shook his head lightly. "Boss, I'm here to accompany you today, so this money should be yours," said Qi Nan hesitantly. "I don't need this money," said Tan Xiao with furrowed brows. "I just want to tell you one thing." Seeing that Tan Xiao insisted on not accepting it, Qi Nan had no choice but to put the money away and respectfully asked, "Please say it." "Before I say it, I want to ask you a question," said Tan Xiao. "You did it on purpose in the previous race, didn't you?" Qi Nan was very smart and naturally understood what Tan Xiao was asking. She hesitated for a moment before she nodded and said, "Yes, I did it on purpose." "Why?" Tan Xiao's expression was a bit cold and indifferent. "Your speed is very fast at this moment, boss," said Qi Nan seriously. "I can't let you be in danger. If you want to win, you must make that guy get out of the way. There's only one way to make him get out of the way, and that's to make him die." "Anyhow, you did it all for me," said Tan Xiao. "Yes," replied Qi Nan with a straight face. A trace of a forced smile appeared on Tan Xiao's handsome face as he shook his head and said, "Forget it. Since you have such a mentality, then I won't say anything more. But remember, don't easily kill people in the future. Although you have undergone extremely strict training, and have killed a lot of people with your own hands, every life has its own meaning. But every life has its own meaning, and being kind to others is always better than being evil to others. Today is the last day. This is the 3rd chapter, and there will be 3 more chapters to be updated later. Brothers and sisters, don't miss it. _. Chapter 327. Being kind to others? Being evil? Qi Nan was very clear about this concept, but she didn't care about it at all. In her mind, those who threatened the everlasting feast hall were enemies, and those who threatened her life were also enemies. She would never be soft-hearted toward her enemies. As for those who were neither enemies nor her own people, their life and death had nothing to do with her. She also knew a bit about Tan Xiao. She felt that Tan Xiao was somewhat insincere, which was very inconsistent with his previous style of doing things. "Can I ask you a question, boss?" Qi Nan hesitated inwardly, but she couldn't help but ask. "Go ahead," Tan Xiao said. "Boss, since ancient times there has been a distinction between good and good and evil cannot coexist. Can you tell me what is good? What is evil?" The distinction between good and evil lies in the human heart, Tan Xiao said lightly. A good heart and good deeds are righteous, while an evil heart and evil deeds are evil. Man is a contradictory individual. In fact, both good and evil are in the human heart. The essential difference between good and evil lies in the human heart. But I want to know, boss, are you righteous or evil? Asked Qinan again. Tan Xiao glanced at her and calmly said, I'm evil to my enemies, but I'm righteous to my own people. Let me give you an example. I've killed a lot of people in Hong Kong before, but those people were not good people. If they didn't provoke me, I wouldn't have bothered to pay attention to them. But since they provoked me and wanted me to have a miserable end, I naturally have to fight back and even kill them. But I'm kind to ordinary people, those who have no malice toward me and won't harm me. Even if it's within my power, I'll still help those kind people. For example, I have an identity as a doctor at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital in Shuangqing Province. Qinan stared at Tan Xiao in a daze. She never thought that Tan Xiao, who had just been admitted to university, would be a doctor at a Chinese medical hospital. Boss. I got it. Qinan repeatedly pondered over Tan Xiao's character, and finally came to the conclusion that her boss was a good person. It's good that you understand. Tan Xiao nodded. We will definitely have great power in the future, but even with power, we can't treat ordinary people as ants. In fact, even in the martial Dao realm, the truly prestigious martial Dao experts did not only cultivate martial arts, but also cultivated their hearts. There's a phrase that I think is very good. Martial virtue. What is martial virtue? Martial. Stopping war was martial. Martial arts was the ability to stop fighting and stop fighting. It was also the foundation of strengthening one's body. Virtue was based on benevolence and righteousness. The above is the proper conduct of words and deeds. To sum it up, it is the behavior characteristics of martial arts and the words and deeds of those who practice martial arts with benevolence and righteousness as the standard. The Chinese civilization has 5,000 years of history, and has a long history of martial arts. Only by tempering one's temperament and stabilizing one's confidence could one enter the next level and reach the level of a grandmaster. In fact, you can even continuously improve while cultivating your heart, and reach a realm where you can break through the limits of ordinary people. After saying that, Tan Xiao turned his head to look outside the window and sighed. Among the masses of people, there are strong and weak. Bullying the weak will only bring trouble to oneself. Only by being kind to others and maintaining one's original heart can one go further and reduce the troubles on the path of cultivation. What you said makes sense, boss. Qinan agreed. To put it simply, having more friends is always better than having more enemies. I'll keep your words in mind. As long as no one attacks our everlasting feast hall, and no one hurts the people I care about, I won't take their lives. It's good that you understand. Tan Xiao nodded. A smile appeared on Qinan's face as she said, Boss, you really don't want the gambling money you won tonight? That's your win, not mine, Tan Xiao said with a smile. If you must give it to me, then consider it as the welfare I'm giving to this excellent subordinate of yours. You're really generous, boss. It's my fortune to work for you, said Qinan with a charming smile. Don't flatter me. Concentrate on driving. Tan Xiao couldn't help but laugh. Also, contact Tian Li after you go back. If she has left the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in Jingmen Island, tell her to come to Shanghai. I'll contact her later, said Qinan. Blue Star Villa Complex. Several security guards were standing guard at the gate. Every vehicle entering and exiting must swipe a card here, and those without an access card must be registered. Creak. A black Lamborghini was parked at the gate. Hello, if you don't have an access card, you need to register before you can enter, said a security guard respectfully after saluting. As a security guard in this upscale villa complex, he was naturally aware that the people living in this villa complex were either rich or expensive. Some sports cars worth millions of yuan were often entering and exiting. Tan Xiao opened the door and got off saying, "Give me an access card." The security guard stared blankly for a moment. He had seen Tan Xiao yesterday, so he naturally knew that Tan Xiao was the owner of Villa number 9. However, he didn't expect that Tan Xiao, who also took a taxi in the morning, would unexpectedly have a beautiful woman driving a Lamborghini to send him back in the evening. Hello, Mr. Tang. Is this the license plate for the access card? Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment before he shook his head and said, No, it's not this car. This is my friend's car. My car is in the villa. As for the license plate, I didn't pay attention to it. The strange expression in the security guard's eyes turned thicker as he said, Mr. Tang, you need to register the license plate to apply for an access card. Generally, you need to contact the owner of the villa complex if you don't know the license plate. If you want to apply for an access card, you need to know your license plate number. All right then. Tan Xiao forced a smile. Can you come with me? I have a few cars in my garage, so help me apply for a few access cards. About this, all right. The security guard replied and spoke a few words to the security guards behind him. Then he turned to Tan Xiao and said, Mr. Tang, please register this young lady. You can go in first. I'll drive the patrol car, and we'll be there shortly. Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment before he turned to Qi Nan and said, Just send me here. I'll take the patrol car directly. Understood. Qi Nan replied. Under Tan Xiao's watchful eyes, she reversed the car, turned around, and then drove to the road not far away. I'll have to trouble you to come with me, Tan Xiao said with a smile. I'll cooperate with you if you need any information. All right. The security guard didn't expect that Tan Xiao would be so easygoing, so the smile on his face turned a lot brighter. After arriving at Villa number 9, Tan Xiao opened the villa's door with the access card, and then came to the garage with the security guard. As the electric door slowly opened, 4 cars appeared in front of the security guard under the bright lights. Hiss! The security guard was well informed and often saw luxury cars coming in and out of the villa complex, but he couldn't help but gasp when he saw these 4 cars parked in the villa's garage. It was shocking. Never once did he expect that Tan Xiao would have so many luxury cars. There were only 4 parking spaces in the garage. He simply couldn't imagine how many more luxury cars there would be if there were more parking spaces in this villa. An Audi A8, a BMW 7 Series, a Ferrari supercar, a Bentley Toyota. Each of these 4 cars was worth at least a few million. The security guard turned to look at Tan Xiao and said with a forced smile, Mr. Tang, you have so many cars. Why did you take a taxi the first time you came, and when you left this morning? I'm a student from the nearby Shanghai University, Tan Xiao said with a smile. Driving these cars is too eye-catching. A student? The security guard's lips squirmed a few times. He was startled and speechless. A few minutes later, the security guard registered the license plates of the 4 cars and asked for Tan Xiao's ID card. The shock on his face hadn't completely subsided before he left. Tan Xiao pressed the button to close the garage door and went straight to the 2nd floor of the villa. After taking a bath and comfortably changing into pajamas, he dialed Mu Qingping's number. Tan Xiao. Mu Qingping's laughter came out of the phone. Have you packed everything? Tan Xiao asked. When are you going to 9 Dragons Island? Everything is ready, Mu Qingping said with a smile. Tomorrow morning, I'll take Chimei to Hong Kong, and then transfer to Saipan. All right, Tan Xiao said. I'll give you a phone number. Contact the other party before you board the plane. Tell her to pick you up. When you arrive in Saipan, someone will pick you up and directly send you to 9 Dragons Island. 9 Dragons Island is now under construction, and you have the absolute right to speak, so you must manage it well. Mu Qingping said with all seriousness. Don't worry. I'll definitely do it. Are my parents in Southgate Town? Tan Xiao asked with a smile. Mu Qingping said. No, it seems that something happened. They ate here for dinner, but they left in a hurry before the meal was finished. Something happened? Tan Xiao's complexion changed as he said. All right, I'll call them to ask about the situation. After that, Tan Xiao hung up and directly dialed his mother's cell number. Half a minute later, the call was connected and Su Lingyun's voice came out of the phone. Xiao, why haven't you slept yet? Mom, Sister Ping said something happened at home. What is it? Tan Xiao asked. Su Lingyun was silent for a few seconds before she said with a forced smile. Let your dad tell you. He knows it better than me. Hello, Xiao. Tang Yunda's voice came out of the phone. Dad, what happened? Tan Xiao asked. Tang Yunda forced a smile and said, Our family's business in the south has been attacked by hostile families. Even the business line of your second grandpa's manor has been cut off. In the conflict, 3 people trained by our family died and more than a dozen were seriously injured. Your first uncle has rushed over there. Where are you and Mom? Tan Xiao asked. We just arrived in the imperial capital by plane and haven't seen your grandpa yet, Tang Yunda said. Chapter 328. Tell me the specific situation, asked Tan Xiao. Maybe I can do something about it. Tang Yunda was silent for a moment before he slowly said, Xiao, the Tang family is very unstable now, but we can barely cope with it. At worst, we'll just suffer some losses. The other party won't dare to launch a full-scale attack, because a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. They will suffer heavy losses if they want to topple our family. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse? What does that mean? Tan Xiao furrowed his brows and asked. I don't understand what you mean, Dad. What do you mean by a starving camel is still bigger than a horse? As far as I know, the Tang family is among the super families in the imperial capital. Even if we can't rank first, it shouldn't be a problem for us to be in the top 3, right? Had it been more than a decade ago, perhaps our Tang family could be ranked in the top 3. Tang Yunda forced a smile. But since your grandpa's asthma attacks have become more frequent and the leaders have changed, our Tang family has become much weaker. The problem in the imperial capital is very complicated, especially our enemies. They took advantage of your grandpa's poor health to make a lot of fuss and pressure us step by step. Although our Tang family can be ranked in the top 10 among the big families in the imperial capital, it's far from being qualified to be in the top 3. Tan Xiao furrowed his brows and asked, You mean the enemy is strong and we're weak? That's right. That's the situation. Tang Yunda forced a smile. Everyone has been safe and sound in the past few years, each developing their own family. But recently, our enemy family suddenly gained the support of another medium-sized force, so their power has increased a lot. Therefore, they're now ready to move. Although they don't dare to blatantly tear all pretense of cordiality with us, they still have some small frictions. Which family is the enemy? Asked Tan Xiao. The Yao family, Tang Yunda answered. Tan Xiao firmly remembered this family and said, Dad, I can ignore the family's affairs for now. But you must tell me promptly if the family needs anything. The power that I possess should be much greater than what you understand. Whether it's military force or financial resources. Tang Yunda was confused and asked, What force? Haven't you told me everything you should tell me? Tan Xiao said, Dad, don't ask now. Anyway, let's keep in touch and let me know if you have any problems. By the way, I haven't asked, which city did the Yao family and our Tang family clash in? Guangyang and Fukang, said Tang Yunda. I see. Tan Xiao nodded. You and my mom should take care of yourselves. Don't worry. Tang Yunda said. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiao's eyes flashed with coldness. Although he didn't have much affection for the Tang family was still his family. He knew how the Tang family felt about him. Therefore, he had already accepted the Tang family. If the other party was really arrogant, he wouldn't mind using the Everlasting Feast Hall's power. Furthermore, once the Everlasting Feast Hall's power was mobilized, it would be a bloody storm. Wearing pajamas, Tan Xiao stood up from the bed, walked to the wine cabinet, opened the door, and took out a bottle of red wine. Although he wasn't very fond of red wine, it wouldn't hurt to drink some. After pouring a glass of red wine, he took the crystal glass and went to the balcony. Looking at the swaying shadows of the trees outside, Tan Xiao secretly sighed inwardly. The power he had was still too small. If he was given a few more years to develop, let alone the Yao family in the imperial capital, he was confident that he would be invincible even if he had to contend with all the families in the country. Talents. Experts. A cold light flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes as he silently pondered. Where should he go to find a group of talents? A few minutes later, after he finished drinking the red wine in the crystal glass, a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. The immortal world was a big world. Earth was a small world. A big world and a small world had common characteristics. Tan Xiu once had a great career in the immortal world. He owned a huge territory and recruited a lot of subordinates. Although he had handed over the territories he once controlled after his power reached the supreme level in the immortal world, and let his subordinates manage them, he had, after all, experienced it. Therefore he already had an idea. Prison. The black market. Tan Xiu believed that there were definitely a lot of capable people in the prison. In the immortal world. In order to cultivate a group of experts to help him inquire about the immortal world, Tan Xiu secretly selected a group of people from the prisons of the large countries in the immortal world. These people were cruel and merciless, each with their own abilities. Although there was a problem with their temperament, Tan Xiu had magical powers and secret techniques that could control their life and death. Therefore, more than half of the territory of the immortal world had an intelligence network controlled by Tan Xiu, and many of them even became powerful after his training. Although there were no super experts who had reached the supreme level in the immortal world, there were still some people who stood out, and their strength made billions of immortals afraid. There was a black market in the immortal world, and he believed that there was also a black market on Earth. Although the black market on Earth was not as arrogant as the black market in the immortal world, he could choose some people with good martial arts from many underground black market boxing arenas. Half an hour later, Tan Xiu already had a clear idea in his mind. However, since he had now arrived at the University of Shanghai and Guyan, who was in a coma at the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in Jingmen Island, could wake up at any time, he could only suppress the idea of recruiting talents at the bottom of his heart. I'll take some time to go everywhere after everything has completely stabilized. Aside from the Everlasting Feast Hall's people, I have no other experts to offer, so I have to be cautious in many things. Tan Xiu thought inwardly. At the imperial capital, inside the Tang family's ancestral residence, Tang Guosheng frowned as he flipped through the documents in his hand, while Tang Guosho sat opposite him with a face full of anger. Dad, the Yao family's Starlight Group has cut off our commercial supply channels in Guangyang and Fukang. Our Tang family's vassal, the Bai family, has also been fiercely sniped. The investigation on the Bai family's patriarch, Bai Yang, has been stopped. If we don't fight back immediately, I'm afraid we won't be able to keep Bai Yang. Tang Min, who stood next to the two men, eyes full of anger. Tang Guosheng slowly raised his head and said, the Yao family has been secretly laying out their plans in Guangyang and Fukang for several years. Apart from the two biggest families who are now maintaining their neutrality, several other families have secretly colluded with the Yao family. Unless the two biggest families in these two provinces come forward to help us, it will be very difficult for us to fight back. If we can't do it on the surface, then we'll use force in private, said Tang Min coldly. I've trained a lot of people over the years, and each of them has a hidden identity. Even if they make a move, no one will investigate our Tang family. The Yao family and the other families in Guangyang and Fukang are not stupid. Tang Guosheng shook his head. Even if they don't have any direct evidence, I'm afraid they'll guess that it was our Tang family who instructed them to do it. Once they use all their intelligence network, it won't be too difficult for them to investigate the relationship between you and the person who did it. Even if they investigate it, so what? Tang Min coldly snorted. We'll let them know that our Tang family is not to be trifled with. If they really want to shed all pretense of cordiality and fight with us, then we'll accompany them to the end. At the side, although Tang Guosho's heart was full of anger, he still maintained his rationality and said, Tang Min, remember this. A lack of forbearance in small matters will spoil great plans. If we shed all pretense of cordiality with the Yao family now and fight each other to the death, we won't be able to get any benefits, and it's very likely that we'll be targeted by the other families who are eyeing us covetously. At that time, even if our Tang family isn't destroyed by the Yao family, the other families will definitely take advantage of our misfortune. That's right. Tang Guosheng nodded. What our Tang family needs to do now is to slowly develop and strengthen our own strength. I was sick before, so I had no time to manage a lot of things. Our enemies thought that I couldn't hold on any longer, so they were getting restless. But now that my illness has been cured, it won't be a problem for me to hold on for another 10 years. Why did I conceal the fact that my illness has been cured? It's because I wanted to endure and gain some time for our Tang family. The plan we implemented last month has already started in secret. If we have a few more years, I can guarantee that we'll be able to catch up with the Yao family with the huge resources we've invested. But the Yao family is pressing us too hard in the 2 southern provinces. Tang Min forced a smile. If this goes on, our forces in those 2 provinces will be completely eradicated by them. I'll contact second brother. He has been enjoying himself in Jingmen Island for so many years, so it's time for him to come out and walk around. Even if our forces in the 2 southern provinces are completely uprooted, we can't let the Yao family and those small families have a good time. Do you want me to rush over there? Asked Tang Min quickly. No need for the time being. Tang Guosheng shook his head. Your big brother should be able to stall for some time if he goes there personally. That's right. I've already told Yunda about the situation at home. I didn't expect that he also left some secret moves in the past. If it really doesn't work, we can also use some of his hidden forces. Tang Min stared blankly for a moment and asked in astonishment. My second brother? Isn't he? There are some things you don't know, said Tang Guosheng. Your second brother and second sister-in-law are on the way to the imperial capital. They should be arriving soon. You'll know when they come. Tang Min was somewhat curious. She didn't understand what kind of secret moves her second brother could arrange after he directly turned into a vegetable. Ring, ring, ring. Tang Guosheng's cell phone on the tea table suddenly rang. Tang Guosheng raised his brows as he grabbed the phone and said, What's up? Dad, the Starlight Group's HQ in Guangyang has been burned down. The fire is very fierce and there are still more than a dozen security guards who haven't escaped. The person in charge has already called the fire department, but they haven't been dispatched yet. It's been almost 20 minutes since the fire started. Tang Yunping's angry voice came from the phone. Chapter 329. Tang Guosheng's expression changed, and a bit of anger could be seen on his face. The Starlight Group was a company controlled by the Tang family that brought them billions of income every year. It could be said that the Starlight Group was one of the 3 major sources of income for the Tang family. Once it was destroyed, it would bring huge losses to the Tang family. Who did it? We haven't investigated it clearly yet, said Tang Yunpeng. The security guards trapped in the HQ have contacted the security personnel in the monitoring room. We haven't found out who did it yet. Furthermore, the entire Starlight Group's building will be burned down if the fire department doesn't arrive soon. At that time, the dozens of security guards trapped inside will also be buried in the sea of fire. Tang Guosheng took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Contact the security personnel inside immediately. Leave 2 of them to continue searching for clues, and tell the rest to immediately find a way to withdraw. Also, tell those who stay and their families that we'll give them the best treatment and provide them with the best life. Understood. Tang Yunpeng replied and immediately hung up the phone. Tang Guosheng put the phone back on the tea table and fell into silence. His eyes flickered with a shrewd light as he silently pondered on how to resolve this matter. Big brother, let me go too, said Tang Guosheng in a deep voice. Tang Guosheng slowly looked up and shook his head. You can't go, and neither can I. If we can't sit still, our enemies will think that we can't afford the loss. At that time, their attacks on us will be even more savage. At this time, 2 people came in from the door. They were Tang Yunda and Su Lingyun. Dad, what's the situation now? Tang Yunda went straight to Tang Guosheng and asked in a hurried tone. The Starlight Group's HQ has been burned down, said Tang Guosheng in a deep voice. If my guess is correct, it's them who did it. Tang Yunda's expression changed and he asked in a deep voice, Do you want me to go there? No need for the time being. Tang Guosheng shook his head and said, Your big brother has already rushed there. But tell me, what's the scale of the secret plan you arranged in the past? It's inconvenient to move in Saipan, said Tang Yunda. It's a critical moment for him to advance. Once he succeeds, he'll become the supreme leader of Saipan. He'll even have several other distinguished statuses. At that time, the benefits would be huge. We can make a move on Macau. After so many years of development, the company there has a capital of nearly 100 billion. And they have also secretly trained many loyal subordinates. Tang Guosheng narrowed his eyes and asked, Let your big brother handle it first. If he couldn't do anything about the situation there, then he would use the people in Macau first. The forces that our Tang clan is secretly nurturing cannot act rashly for the time being. Unless it is a life and death crisis, they must remain hidden. No problem. Tang Yunda nodded. But what about Starlight Group? The headquarters building has been burned down. Even if we move to a new location, I'm afraid that business will be delayed for a long time. Tang Guosheng said. If it doesn't work, we'll completely withdraw from Guangyang and Fukang. Although the Starlight Group's headquarters is set up in Guangyang province, there are still a few Starlight Group branches in the surrounding provinces. When the time comes, we will temporarily use the branches as the Starlight Group's headquarters. Tang Yunda nodded. Suddenly, his expression slightly moved as he recalled what his son told him on the way here. He hesitated and said, Dad, Xiao just contacted me. Tang Yunda furrowed his brows and asked in a deep voice, Did you tell him about the situation at home? Tang Yunda nodded and said, He's a member of our Tang family. Since he took the initiative to ask, I have no need to hide it from him. Besides, he has grown up, so I don't want to hide it from him. Tang Guosheng snorted coldly. Even if he has grown up, he's still a child in our eyes. Let him finish his studies well, and he doesn't need to worry about the Tang family's difficulties. Our Tang family owes him too much. We just need to give him the best, eat the best, and everything else is the best. We'll take care of the other problems. For the first time, Su Lingyun interjected. Dad, I think Yunda is right. Xiao may be young, but he's very sensible. He has the blood of the Tang family in him, so he must advance and retreat together with them. There's no need to hide this matter from him. Besides, I heard from him that he has made a lot of money now. I'll tell him if there's a need here. Tang Guosheng looked angry, but he didn't flare up in the end. If these words were said by his son, Tang Yunda, he would have scolded him. But it was said by his daughter-in-law who had been losing money for 20 years, so he couldn't be angry. He could only suppress his anger and said, It's true that Xiao is a member of the Tang family, but he's still studying now. He does need to advance and retreat together with the Tang family, but not at this time. After he finishes his studies and graduates from the university, I'll personally arrange the best path for him if he wants to. He wants to do business, and the Tang family's business power will be handed over to him slowly. If he wants to enter politics, I'll pave the golden road for him. Remember, it's not now. Tang Yunda and Su Lingyun exchanged glances. They could feel their father's love for his son from his tone. However, Tang Yunda was, after all, a man of iron bones. Even though he was in a coma for 20 years, it still didn't wear away his courage and courage. Furthermore, he had been in a coma for 20 years, the loneliness and darkness that could drive countless people crazy, yet he had endured it with his tenacity. Hence he was very calm now. Dad, you can express your thoughts, but I also want to tell you Xiao's thoughts, said Tang Yunda seriously. Tang Guosheng stared blankly and asked, What thoughts does Xiao have? Xiao told me to immediately tell him if the Tang family needs anything, said Tang Yunda. He also said that the forces he has are not the ones I know. Though, what I know is already shocking to me. Tang Guosheng frowned and said, What forces does Xiao have? Isn't it just his business in Star City? It's more than just business. Tang Yunda forced a smile. Although I haven't specifically calculated how much wealth Xiao has now, it's at least no less than 3 or 4 billion yuan. Tang Guosheng stared blankly and so did Tang Guoshou. Even Tang Min was dumbfounded as she looked at Tang Yunda with an incredulous expression. 3 or 4 billion yuan. How was that possible? Tang Guosheng had sent some people to investigate the total assets of the magnificent Tang Corporation, and it was at most 1 billion yuan. How could it suddenly increase several times? Tang Guosheng suddenly realized something and said, You mean you know that Xiao has 3 or 4 billion yuan in assets, but he also has forces you don't know about? That's right. Tang Yunda nodded. Then tell me, what other assets does Xiao have besides the magnificent Tang Corporation? Asked Tang Guosheng in a deep voice. Xiao bought an island in the Pacific Ocean, said Tang Yunda. He spent 5 billion yuan at that time. He borrowed the money from his disciple, Chen Zhizhong. However, I don't know where he got the 5 billion yuan, as he has already returned all of it to Qinjizhong. Moreover, the thing he had been busy with abroad recently was the reconstruction of that island. I think he must have spent a lot of money to rebuild the island. Tang Guosheng was shocked. He actually bought an island in the Pacific Ocean? Why did he buy an island? Xiao said that it will be our Tang family's headquarters in the future, said Tang Yunda. The Pacific Ocean? Island? Base camp? Not only was Tang Guosheng shocked by Tang Yunda's words, but even Tang Guoshou and Tang Min were also shocked. Tan Xiao said that it would be the Tang family's headquarters? Could it be that the Tang family would not be able to stay in the country in the future? Would they have to hide in the vast sea? After a long while, Tang Guosheng waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "No matter what forces Xiao has, he's too young. Even if he does, he won't be able to help our Tang family now. Therefore, our top priority is to solve the current crisis first." Shanghai, Blue Star Villa Complex. Tan Xiao didn't immediately rest, nor did he directly cultivate. After pondering for a long time, he dialed Gu Xiaoxue's cell number. "Are you looking for me, Grandmaster?" Gu Xiaoxue's light voice came from the phone. "Xiaoxue, I have something to ask you," said Tan Xiao. "Please speak, Grandmaster," said Gu Xiaoxue. "Is there anyone from our everlasting feast hall in Guangyang and Fukang?" asked Tan Xiao. "Yes, there is a branch of Grand Fortune Jewelry and Prudential Real Estate Group. However, there are only a few core members of our everlasting feast hall in these two provinces." "How many experts can the everlasting feast hall dispatch now?" asked Tan Xiao. "Everyone can be dispatched at any time," said Gu Xiaoxue with a smile. "I can immediately dispatch them to Guangyang and Fukang if you have any orders, Grandmaster." "That's right, I just remembered something. There is someone in Fukang who owes our everlasting feast hall a favor." "Who is it?" asked Tan Xiao. "It's the Huang family in Fukang. In the past, Master saved the life of the current Huang family's patriarch. The reason why the Huang family's patriarch could become the patriarch was also because of Master. Therefore, the Huang family will fully support you if you need it, boss." "Is the Huang family a big force in Fukang?" asked Tan Xiao. "Even if it's not the first, it's at least the second," Gu Xiaoxue said. "The Huang family's patriarch would come to our Jingmen Island's everlasting feast hall's HQ every year on the first day of the new year. He has always wanted to see my master, but he always returns disappointed." But what?" asked Tan Xiao. "To make the Huang family feel grateful to our everlasting feast hall, I once issued an order to send 3 outstanding members of their family to our Jingmen Island's everlasting feast hall every 3 years to learn. It can be said that our everlasting feast hall has trained a lot of experts in the past 10 years. Since the Huang family is there, then our everlasting feast hall's people don't need to act," said Tan Xiao in a deep voice. "My family has encountered a bit of trouble, so we need people from Guangyang and Fukang to play a role. Give me the contact information of the Huang family's patriarch." "All right. It's the last day of the month. Brothers and sisters, please leave your monthly tickets. Quiet night, thanks." Chapter 330. It was the last 20 hours or so. Her position on the monthly votes list had been overtaken again and again. Quiet Night was almost numb to it. Seeing how others could get 500 to 600 or even 1,000 votes with just a simple shout, Quiet Night could only get a pitiful few votes even if she shouted until her throat was hoarse. Quiet Night was too ashamed to ask for monthly votes. However, if she shouted once, she would still get a few monthly votes. If she didn't shout twice, she might end up with 0. After weighing the pros and cons, Quiet Night decided to be thick-skinned and open another chapter. People had to learn to be content with what they had. Otherwise, they would die early. This month had been almost 30 days. Quiet Night's nerves had been highly tensed, and her body was also in a highly overdrawn state. Then, she tragically fell ill yesterday. She had a high fever, diarrhea, and cold sweat. Illness came like a landslide, and Quiet Night collapsed in an instant. Just as Quiet Night endured all kinds of discomfort and persevered until the 3rd hour, something even more unlucky happened today. When Quiet Night was sorting out this month's invoices, she realized that several thousand yuan's worth of invoices had disappeared. That was a whole 10,000 yuan, which was enough for Quiet Night's living expenses for a year. She had no monthly votes. Life was difficult. Quiet Night really couldn't hold on any longer. Quiet Night's only hope now was the monthly votes in the hands of her brothers and sisters. Every single one of your monthly votes could give Quiet Night endless strength, allowing her to persevere. Brothers and sisters, please check your personal study rooms. If there are any monthly votes, please throw them to Quiet Night. We must persevere. Quiet Night has worked hard for 30 days, and so have all of us. The last day is the time to test our results. On account of Quiet Night's 30 days of outburst, I beg for monthly votes to support me. Quiet Night pays her respects. Chapter 331. Tan Xiao got the phone number of the Fukang province's Huang family's patriarch, but he did not immediately contact the other party. He thought for a long time and did not give this number to the Tang family. Now, he didn't know how far the situation had developed, and if he rashly interfered, it would make him look like he wasn't calm. Furthermore, the Tang and Yao families weren't just business families. Most importantly, they were political families. This was a contest that involved the upper echelons of the domestic political scene. Once he intervened, there would be all kinds of trouble. Good steel should be used on the blade's edge. He was like a piece of good steel. While the conflict between the Tang and Huang families was still in its early stages, it was far from a life-and-death situation. Only when the Tang clan was on the verge of suffering a great loss, a loss that would cause the Tang clan to suffer a great blow, would he brazenly strike. However, since the Huang family and the Everlasting Feast Hall had a deep relationship, he could meet the Huang family's head first. After some consideration, Tan Xiao decided to contact the patriarch of the Huang family the next day. He collected all his thoughts and returned to his bed to cultivate. Right now, his cultivation had improved greatly, and he had already reached the peak of the flesh-strengthening stage. If he made another breakthrough, he would be at the bone-altering stage. Tan Xiao did not stay in the raw meat stage for a long time. That was because he had benefited from opportunities. As Tan Xiao sat cross-legged and cultivated, the power of the stars in the sky surged layer by layer, rushing towards Tan Xiao like a tidal wave. Now the speed at which he absorbed the power of the stars was several times faster than when he was stuck at the skin-strengthening stage. Unfortunately, the heaven and earth energy in Shanghai was extremely sparse, causing Tan Xiao's cultivation speed to be far slower than when he was on Nine Dragons Island. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis was divided into 3 stages. The first stage was the star's tyrannical body. The star's tyrannical body was further divided into chi training, skin strengthening, flesh growth, bones transformation, meridians transformation, marrow's transformation, viscera transformation, circulating chi and blood, and 9 controlled dance steps. Now he was at the peak of the flesh rejuvenation realm. Although he could not compare to the golden elixir realm of the past, he was not far from it. He was confident that once he broke through to the bone transformation realm, he would be comparable to the golden core realm. As his cultivation level increased, he was able to use more and more secret skills. However, in today's modern society, the secret skills he had mastered were not of much use. It seems that if I want to improve my strength quickly, I'll have to cultivate on Nine Dragons Island. After cultivating for 4 hours, Tan Xiao slowly opened his eyes, and a bitter smile appeared on his handsome face. The result of 4 hours of cultivation was almost the same as half an hour of cultivation on Nine Dragons Island. 8 o'clock in the morning. Tan Xiao woke up from his sleep and washed up refreshed. When he went downstairs, he realized that there was no one else in the villa except for him. This wasn't Southgate Town, where there was no housekeeper to help him prepare breakfast. Should we hire a nanny? Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment, then decided to find a housekeeping company and choose a good-natured and hardworking nanny. Go to school. Buy something to eat on the way. Tan Xiao smiled bitterly and shook his head. After leaving the villa area, he passed by a nearby business district and bought some food in a shop. He didn't take a taxi and just ate as he walked. Although the 7th was the time for military training, Tan Xiao didn't want to participate in it. University military training was simply child's play for him. Going there to experience life was nothing but suffering. He had already made up his mind that he would go to the classroom today, and then look for Lu Bai. Since he was the deputy dean of the history department of Shanghai University, he should have the ability to help him escape from the military training program. On the 4th floor of Block B of the teaching building, when Tan Xiao arrived at the classroom, he found that there were only 20 to 30 people scattered in the classroom. Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, Zhao Liang, and 2 other students who drank with him yesterday were gathered together, talking and laughing about some topic. Big Bro Tang. Upon seeing Tan Xiao's arrival, Hu Qingsong's eyes suddenly lit up as he vigorously waved his arm and called out. His voice was very loud. Almost at this moment, the 20 to 30 students in the classroom all looked at Tang Xiao at the same time. They had heard of Tan Xiao's name after they came to the school. Not only did they know that Tan Xiao was the top science scholar in Shuangqing province, but they also knew that Tan Xiao's former high school class teacher was their current class teacher, Han Qinggu. Tan Xiao faintly smiled at all the students and strode to Hu Qingsong's side. Then he said with a smile, "Didn't you say to gather in the classroom at 9:30? Why are you here so early?" "What else can it be? It's fresh," Yu Kai said. "It's the first day that the whole class meets. Although nearly half of the students haven't arrived yet, they still want to see if there are any beauties among our classmates. It's a pity." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing. When he came to the classroom, he found that there were only 6 girls in the class, and they all looked very ordinary. "We're here to study. If you want to pick up girls, just go to the bar outside the school. With your qualifications, it should be very easy for you to hook up with some girls who hang out in the nightclubs," Tan Xiao said with a smile. Yu Kai waved his hand and said, "I'm not interested in those girls who can casually go to a hotel with men. Don't you think that enjoying those girls is like picking up garbage?" "Picking up garbage?" The group of people burst into laughter. Tan Xiao rolled his eyes and said with a funny and angry expression, "You think you're picking up garbage, but others think you're picking it up cheap. A full man doesn't know the hunger of a hungry man. You can ask Hu Qingsong if you don't believe me. If it's him, will he think he's picking up garbage?" "Absolutely not," Hu Qingsong immediately said. "I'll think that I'm very handsome and manly. I'll happily take those girls to get a hotel room." Yu Kai rolled his eyes and snorted. "If you want such girls, then come with me to the nightclubs later. I'll help you hook up some of them. But Big Bro Tang, you haven't taught us how to pick up girls yet." "I really don't know how to pick up girls." Tan Xiao shook his head. "If you really want to learn, I'll buy some love secret books to read. I'll immediately teach you how to pick up girls from them. Of course, if you think it's too troublesome, I'll directly buy the books for you to read." "Are you kidding me?" Yu Kai angrily said. "What if you don't have the real ability to pick up girls? How can our teacher Han be so eager to come to Shanghai University to teach after you graduated from high school? She must have used her connections to come to our history department and become our class's teacher in charge." Tan Xiao directly turned his head to the side. Since he couldn't explain it clearly, he didn't feel like explaining it. Han Qinggu had her own life, and he had his own. The two of them only had a teacher-student relationship, so how could there be a relationship between them? Although she looked very much like his wife in the Immortal world. But that was only their appearance. He didn't believe that Han Qinggu had the slightest relationship with that woman. Hu Qingsong also came over and said with a sneaky expression, "Big Bro Tang, believe it. I came back with Teacher Han last night and found a special situation." "What situation?" Tan Xiao stared blankly and asked with a confused expression. "When we came back last night, Teacher Han's eyes lit up every time she mentioned you," said Hu Qingsong. Even the smile on her beautiful face turned a bit thicker. "I dare say that Teacher Han really has feelings for you. Even if you're not together now, as long as you're bold enough to express your love to her, she'll be in your arms." "Fuck off," Tan Xiao snappily cursed with a smile. "Did you hear that, Big Bro Tang?" Yu Kai sighed. "Did you hear what Hu Qingsong just said? Miss Han has taken a fancy to you. You're the one who pretended that nothing happened. You don't know how much you want to hold that devastatingly beautiful Teacher Han in your arms when you're not in front of us." Tan Xiao suddenly realized that these guys around him were all freaking stud horses reincarnated. Their heads were full of love and affection. Didn't they know that there were many other emotions besides sex? Speak of the devil, and he will appear. Just as they were talking about Han Qinggu's beautiful figure appeared outside the classroom. Her long and elegant hair fluttered in the breeze. Along with the sound of her slapping, everyone's eyes instantly fell on her. She wore a beautiful dress that set off her delicate and perfect body. Coupled with her beautiful face, she was simply like a goddess in the minds of countless boys. Han Qinggu gently stroked the long hair on her forehead and said with a smile, "Our class has a total of 48 students, and 28 of them have arrived. There are still 20 who haven't arrived yet. However, the time to report to the campus is in the next few days, so I'm sure the others will come soon. Now the students who have already arrived, please come to the podium and introduce yourselves." "I'll go first." Yu Kai raised his hand and then strode to the podium. He was very bold and very open-minded. With a smiling expression, his eyes swept over all the students. He cleared his throat and said, "Hello, students. I'm Yu Kai. I'm a Shanghai native, 21 years old, and I'm not married this year. I don't even have a girlfriend. If any of you have beautiful women from the same hometown, or beautiful relatives, that's fine too. You can introduce them to me. By the way, I have a wide range of hobbies. I like to play with things that are fun. You can often find me to play with. Ha ha ha." Yu Kai finished his self-introduction amidst a burst of laughter. His words were very interesting and won the favor of most of the students in the class. Next to the podium, Han Qinggu looked at Yu Kai, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She gently raised her arm and flicked her folded fingers. Then she said with a smile, "Why do I feel that you're not here to study at the university, but to go on a blind date? Don't tell me you're treating Shanghai University as a matchmaking agency?" "Miss Han, how did you know?" Yu Kai deliberately showed a shocked expression. Ha ha ha. The students below burst into laughter again. However, Tan Xiao didn't laugh. He almost didn't pay much attention to Han Qinggu before, but he didn't know what happened today. Perhaps it was because of what Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong said that left something in his heart that made him pay more attention to Han Qinggu. However, it was precisely because of this attention that his expression suddenly changed when he saw Han Qinggu's folded fingers and her flicking action. Today's first chapter is here. There are 2 more chapters to go. Please guarantee the monthly support. Chapter 332. Tan Xiao's eyes flickered as he stared at Han Qinggu's overlapping fingers. He was surprised to find that this action of Han Qinggu's was her most habitual action in the immortal world. Once, although Tan Xiao was obsessed with cultivation and neglected her, he had been with her for thousands of years. But after all, they had been together for 1,000 years, so he was very familiar with her habitual actions. At this moment, Tan Xiao recalled his encounter with Han Qinggu after returning to this world. Suddenly he realized a serious problem. The words and actions that he had never paid attention to before had appeared on Han Qinggu's body. Those actions. Those changes in her demeanor. There were also a few small actions that she often did, which were very similar to her in the immortal world. Impossible. Tan Xiao suddenly stood up. Under the gaze of Han Qinggu and the other students, Tan Xiao did not go to the podium. Instead, he turned and walked to the back door, leaving the classroom through the back door. When he came outside the classroom, the irritation in his heart not only didn't reduce, but also increased a lot. Suddenly, he smelled the faint smell of smoke floating in the air. He immediately followed the smell and came to the stairwell. He saw 2 young men squatting in the stairwell, smoking and chatting. Tan Xiao walked over and said, "Buddy, can you give me a cigarette? I came out in a hurry today and forgot to bring a cigarette." The 2 young men stared blankly for a moment. One of them immediately took out a half-pack of cigarettes with a smile and handed one to Tan Xiao. He also handed the lighter and said with a smile, "We originally guessed that only a few good students who can be admitted to Shanghai University would smoke. But we didn't expect to find another smoker. My name is Tang Chao, and I'm from the Western Prairie. He's Yudong from the Northeast. We're freshmen in the finance department." Tan Xiao lit the cigarette and took 2 deep puffs. The irritation in his heart disappeared a bit as he said, "My name is Tan Xiao, and I'm from Star City. I'm a freshman in the history department. You two can chat first. I still have something to do, so I'll go down and chat with you another time." "Alright, go ahead." The two of them could also feel Tan Xiao's gloomy mood, so they nodded and said. Tan Xiao smoked a cigarette and walked out of the teaching building. He walked straight to a small forest not far away and sat down on a stone bench beside the path. Two extremely similar faces kept appearing in his mind. Han Qinggu, Xue Qingcheng. His wife in the immortal world was called Xue Qingcheng. The two women's every frown and smile, the two women's words and actions, were constantly churning and comparing in Tan Xiao's mind. The more Tan Xiao compared them, the more he felt that the two women had too many similarities. No way. Xue Qingcheng should still be safe in the immortal world. At most, he would encounter some problems while cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, but it was absolutely impossible for him to come to Earth. In fact, she doesn't even have the ability to send her avatar over. But they are obviously people from two different worlds. It's fine if they look similar, but why are their expressions and actions somewhat similar? Is this just a pure coincidence? In the history department classroom, Han Qinggu and more than 20 students in the class were puzzled when they saw Tan Xiao leave without saying a word. Han Qinggu wanted to chase after him to ask the reason, but it was not good to leave the other students here. Therefore, she could only smile and explain. Maybe Tan Xiao is not feeling well. Everyone, don't worry about him. Continue with the self-introduction. I'll do it. Hu Qingsong stood up and said. Han Qinggu nodded and listened to the students' self-introduction while dealing with them. Unknowingly, she had already come to the front row window of the classroom. She knew Tan Xiao, and she knew that Tan Xiao would never easily lose his composure. Moreover, she had never seen Tan Xiao leave without saying a word with a somewhat ugly expression. After the students finished their self-introduction, she glanced out of the window. However, at this moment, she clearly saw that in the small forest near the teaching building, Tan Xiao was sitting alone on a stone chair by the side of the path, smoking. That's right. He was smoking. Han Qinggu was stunned. She did not know when Tan Xiao learned to smoke. Something must have happened. Han Qinggu thought to herself. She did not realize that ever since Tan Xiao left the classroom, she had become a little distracted. Did you see that? Miss Han seems to be distracted. When Tan Xiao was here just now, Miss Han was quite spirited, but when Tan Xiao left inexplicably, Miss Han was a little distracted. Could it be that the rumors are true? Did Miss Han really come to Shanghai University for Tan Xiao? It can't be, right? Does Miss Han really like Tan Xiao? Ever since Tan Xiao left the classroom, the smile on her face has been a lot less. That Tan Xiao is too amazing, isn't he? He actually made Miss Han fall in love with him. I must consult him some other day and learn from him how to pick up girls. The whispers of the students were not heard by Han Qinggu. She reluctantly dealt with the students who came to the stage to introduce themselves. After all the students introduced themselves, she forced herself to smile and said, "Well, I believe everyone knows each other. There's not much to do this morning, so let's have a good chat here. I'll come to the classroom again at 2 p.m., and we'll elect a temporary class leader. After that, we'll go to the teaching materials store to get the list of books and textbooks." Zhao Liang asked, "Miss Han, are there a lot of courses in the university?" Han Qinggu shook her head and said, "Not many. But there are a lot of subjects to study. Although you're students of the history department, you still need to choose some elective courses. As for what you like, you can choose it." "Ah, that's right. I've received a notice from the university that there are a lot of societies in the university. If you like that kind of society, you can sign up, or you can wait until the military training is over before you sign up. Miss Han, can we apply to establish a society by ourselves?" Yu Kai suddenly asked. Han Qinggu shook her head and said, "It's very troublesome to apply to establish a society. This kind of thing must wait until the military training is over." "Got it." Yu Kai nodded. Han Qinggu stayed in the classroom for a few minutes before she casually found an excuse to leave the classroom. When she quickly came to the grove where Tan Xiao was, She looked at Tan Xiao, who was sitting motionless on the stone chair, as if he was thinking about something. She secretly sighed inside and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Tan Xiao looked up and saw Han Qinggu. A complicated light flashed in his eyes as he shook his head and said, "Nothing. I just suddenly felt a bit restless, so I came out to breathe some fresh air." Han Qinggu kicked the cigarette, but Tan Xiao threw on the ground and said, "You're smoking a cigarette. You must have a lot of things on your mind, right? Tell me, what's on your mind? Maybe I can help you dispel it." Tan Xiao was silent for a moment before he slowly shook his head and said, "You can't help me." Han Qinggu chuckled and said, "How do you know I can't help you? Tell me, maybe I can help you. Don't forget that I'm a teacher and you're my student." Tan Xiao thought for a while and then said, "Since you really want to help me, then I'll ask you a question. If there are two worlds, one is our Earth, and the other is another, do you think the same person will appear in these two worlds?" Han Qinggu couldn't help laughing and said, "How can there be two worlds? Even if there is, it's impossible for the same person to appear in them. Could it be that this person has a cloning technique? Although I don't know much about physics, many physicists have been trying to study whether there is a space similar to our Earth, such as the positive and negative poles. But they have been studying it for many years, yet they haven't found anything." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "Not finding anything doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I have some unanswered questions in my heart, so I'm a bit restless. Don't worry. I'm fine. Maybe I'll be fine after a while." Han Qinggu forced a smile and said, "I really don't know what's going on in your head. Forget it. Don't let your imagination run wild. You haven't introduced yourself in our class." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "Forget it. Even if I don't introduce myself, I'm afraid everyone already knows me. After all, us teachers and students have entered the same university at the same time. Continuing to maintain a teacher-student relationship has long been known by them." Han Qingwu's ring finger pressed on top of her little finger, middle finger pressed on top of her ring finger, and index finger pressed on top of her middle finger. She gently raised her hand to brush her long hair, and said with a smile, "So you still have to thank me for making you famous? How about it? If you have nothing to do at noon, how about treating me to lunch?" Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "I have something to do at noon." Han Qinggu was confused and asked, "What do you have to do? Don't tell me you don't want to treat me to lunch." "I'm going to look for someone at noon," said Tan Xiao, "the vice president of our history department." Han Qinggu stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression, "Why are you looking for the vice president?" "To ask for leave," Tan Xiao said. Han Qinggu was dumbfounded. She never dreamed that Tan Xiao would look for the vice president to ask for leave. She was perfectly aware of Tan Xiao's ability to ask for leave. When Tan Xiao was studying in Xingqing No. 1 High School, he often asked for leave from time to time, and the number of days he asked for leave was very long. It was fine if he asked for leave before. But why did he want to ask for leave now? He had a lot of things to do in Star City, but now that he came to Demonic City, how could he have more important things to do? "Tan Xiao, why are you asking for leave?" "I don't want to participate in the military training. I think it's very boring," said Tan Xiao. "So I'm taking advantage of the time when others are having their military training, so I'm going to preview my freshman course. My studies will be very easy when the school officially starts." Han Qinggu suddenly understood and said with a smile, "Ah, so you don't want to participate in the military training. I can understand this. When I was in college, I also did everything possible to not participate in the military training. Even if I didn't ask for leave, I would always find all kinds of excuses to reduce the military training time. But if you go to the vice president, will he agree?" "The vice president of Demonic City University's history department is Lu Bai," said Tan Xiao. "I know him." "You know the vice president?" cried Han Qinggu incredulously. Chapter 333. Tan Xiao didn't expect that Han Qinggu would make a fuss over such a trivial matter. He nodded and said, "He's an acquaintance of mine. I met him when I went to Tianjin City before, so we had a bit of an interaction." You want to ask him for a leave just because of a bit of interaction? As far as I know, Vice President Liu is an old-fashioned man who's very difficult to talk to. An inexplicable expression hung on Han Qingwu's face. It was obvious that she knew Liu Bai and didn't like him. Are you also familiar with him? Asked Tan Xiao. I'd rather not, said Han Qingwu. Originally, I was arranged to go to Shanghai University smoothly, but upon seeing that Han Qingwu didn't continue, Tan Xiao immediately smiled and asked, what happened to him? Han Qingwu shook her head and said, forget it. Let's not talk about this matter anymore. If you want to ask for a leave, you must find a good excuse. I can help you apply to the other leaders in the department. However, as far as I know, the teachers and professors in our department are not qualified to decide whether the freshman can ask for a leave during the military training. Why? Tan Xiao stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression. The military training is different from the past, especially the military training in a regular university. It's very strict, said Han Qingwu. Generally speaking, the students who can ask for a leave are not suitable to participate in the military training unless they are sick. Tan Xiao was silent for a moment and then slowly said, I'll give it a try. It's best if I can ask for a leave, but if I can't, I'll participate in the military training. All right. Han Qingwu nodded and asked, what are you going to do next? Go back to the classroom? Or, is there anything else to do in the class? Asked Tan Xiao. Not for the time being. Han Qingwu shook her head. Since there's nothing else, then I'll go first, said Tan Xiao. I'm going to borrow some books from the campus library. That's right. Can I borrow books from the library of Shanghai University at this time? Han Qingwu smiled and said sure. Tan Xiao stood up, waved his hand and said, then I'll go to the library. You can go about your business. 20 minutes later, Tan Xiao arrived at the library. What made him speechless was that the University of Shanghai occupied a huge area. It was at least 10 times bigger than the Xingqing No. 1 high school that he had studied in the past. It took him 20 minutes to walk from the main teaching block to the library. And this was under the condition that they did not take the wrong path after asking around. At this moment, there were very few students going in and out of the entrance of the library. Compared to other places, it felt rather deserted. When Tan Xiao walked in, he was immediately shocked by the rows of bookshelves filled with books in the spacious hall. Hello, I'm a freshman this year. I want to borrow a few books to read. Tan Xiao came to the work area where several staff members were, and said to one of the middle-aged women. The middle-aged woman smiled and said, I'm sorry, but new students can't borrow books from the library for the time being. Although you've got the school's one card, you haven't applied for a library card yet. If you want to borrow books often in the future, you need to submit your identity certificate and other information. We'll apply for a library card for you. Tan Xiao was silent for a moment and then said with a smile, what information do you need? I'll submit it now. All right. A few minutes later, Tan Xiao submitted the information he needed, and then walked into the library. Knowledge was like nourishment. The more knowledge one learned, the smoother one's thoughts would be. Although one couldn't truly know everything in the sky and the earth, having knowledge in one's mind could also make one's path of life more stable and faster. 11 o'clock. After reading a book, Tan Xiao left the library. After asking around, he found Liu Bai's office. Tan Xiao? In the office, Liu Bai was holding a magnifying glass to look at the lines of a stone. Upon hearing the knock on the door, he put down the magnifying glass and looked up. Tan Xiao said with a smile, Professor Liu, I didn't disturb you, did I? Liu Bai quickly came out from his desk and said with a smile on his face, No. I'm very happy that you came to see me. Tan Xiao, we haven't seen each other for nearly 2 months, right? More or less, Tan Xiao said with a smile. After Liu Bai invited Tan Xiao to sit down, he personally brewed a pot of tea and poured it for Tan Xiao. Then he said with a smile, Fortunately, I saw you in Tianjin City before. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known that there's a genius in our university. How is it? You've already reported it, right? Is there anything else you need to do? Tell me and I'll help you immediately. Actually, there are 2 things I need your help with this time, Professor Liu. Tan Xiao said with a smile. Lu Bai said with a smile, say it. As long as I can help, I absolutely won't refuse. Professor Lu, I have some important things to deal with recently. I'm afraid I have no time to participate in the military training. Can you help me open the back door? Tan Xiao said. Lu Bai raised his brows and asked in surprise. What are you going to do? I'll go to Jingmen Island in a few days. There are some important things to deal with there, said Tan Xiao. That's easy. Lu Bai nodded. I've been researching a topic recently, and it's about going to an island in the South China Sea to survey the terrain. When the time comes, I'll add your name to the list of accompanying members, so you don't need to participate in the military training. What's the other thing? I heard that freshmen must live on campus, said Tan Xiao. Can I make an exception for you? Of course, I'll often live on campus, but Lu Bai waved his hand and said, don't listen to other people's nonsense. If freshmen don't want to live on campus, they can also live off campus as long as they apply. These are just trivial matters, just leave it to me. Thank you, Professor Lu, said Tan Xiao with a grateful expression. Do you have time at noon? I'll treat you to a meal. Lu Bai clapped his hands and said with satisfaction, no problem. But I'll treat you to a meal. After all, you've come to my place. If I don't treat you to a meal, I'm afraid that the old man in Tianjin City will poke my backbone. Let's go to the Tongfu restaurant outside campus. I'm a regular customer there. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile. Treat. He naturally wouldn't give it to Lu Bai. After all, he came here today to ask Lu Bai for help. After lunch, Lu Bai declined Lu Bai's invitation to have a cup of tea. After parting, he went to the campus library again. After reading for more than an hour, he came to the classroom. At this moment, the number of students in the class was obviously more than in the morning. There were more than 30 students in the class. Only 10 more students were needed before all the students in the class arrived. The arrival of Tan Xiao also attracted everyone's attention. Many people whispered to each other, thinking that Tan Xiao wouldn't be able to hear them. Brother Tang, over here. Zhao Liang stood up and waved to Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao walked over and sat down. Then he heard Zhao Liang's sneaky voice. Big bro Tang, the students in our class can see it clearly now. Our teacher Han really came to Shanghai University because of you. When you left the classroom in the morning, she was absent-minded. It didn't take long for her to chase after you. Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows as he shook his head and said, she probably has her own business. All right, let's change the topic. Does anyone know the seniors in our school? Why do you ask? Yu Kai was confused. The senior students should have books from the campus library, said Tan Xiao. I'm going to borrow some books from the campus library. If I can't borrow them, I'll buy them outside the campus. Why do you need to borrow them? Just buy them directly. Yu Kai laughed. Tell me what books you want to buy. It's best to make a list. I'll drive out to buy them for you after we finish our business in the afternoon. Then go buy them. Tan Xiao laughed. Let's drive out in the afternoon. I'll treat you to dinner tonight. Yu Kai raised his thumbs up and praised. Big bro Tang is really generous. Where are we going to eat tonight? I'll have lunch at the Tongfu restaurant outside the campus, said Tan Xiao. I think the food there is good. No problem. Yu Kai nodded. Anyways, is your wallet full? If it is, then call Zhao Liang and the others from his dormitory. The 7 of us can drink together. The atmosphere will be great. It's good, isn't it? Tan Xiao nodded. Then call all of them. Yu Kai nodded with satisfaction. Then he suddenly whispered, have you heard? That guy from our dormitory who hasn't come yet was injured by some gangsters while doing a good deed. He's now hospitalized in Shanghai Hospital. I heard that the injury isn't serious, but he won't be able to come to campus for some time. I'm really envious. He doesn't even need to participate in the military training. Doing a good deed? Injured? What happened? Tan Xiao was confused. That dude encountered a robber, said Yu Kai. He helped an old woman snatch back her purse, but he was stabbed by the robber. Since he was afraid of delaying the registration to campus, he was quite tough and covered his wound to come to our campus from the subway station a few kilometers away. I heard that the teachers at the registration office saw the situation and called the police. Later, the police investigated and found out that the kid was stabbed by the robber because he was doing a good deed. That's right, the old woman's son and daughter also made a silk banner. Our campus can be said to be famous this time. A smile appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he nodded and said, "It seems that our dormitory brothers have one more man. How about we find time to go to the hospital to see him?" "We've discussed it," said Yukai. "We're going to the hospital in the afternoon. Yukai and the others from his dormitory will also go." "Then let's go together," Tan Xiu said with a smile. At this time, Han Qinggu came in from outside the classroom. After looking around, she saw that Tan Xiu had also come. A smile immediately appeared on her face as she said, "Those who have just registered, please come here to register. I'm Han Qinggu, your homeroom teacher for the next few years." Immediately, more than a dozen students who had just registered their names and mobile numbers with Han Qinggu. Knock knock, the classroom door was knocked, causing everyone in the class to look at the door. However, when they saw the girl at the classroom door, they all revealed a dull look. Beautiful. Really beautiful. Most of the students in the class had never seen such a beautiful girl. "You are?" Han Qinggu was the first to react as she asked. "I'm looking for Tan Xiu," the beautiful girl said with a smile. Chapter 334. In an instant, everyone's eyes, including Han Qinggu's, uniformly fell on Tan Xiu. Their eyes were filled with envy and jealousy, as they lamented inwardly that why the devastatingly beautiful woman didn't look for them. Han Qinggu looked at Tan Xiu and slightly furrowed her brows as she asked, "Do you know her?" "I do." Tan Xiu slowly got up with a smile on his handsome face. As he walked toward the classroom door, he said, "Miss Han, I'm going out for a while. I'll be back after the party." "All right." Han Qingwu's expression was a bit strange as she silently nodded. After a while, Tan Xiu and the smiling beauty walked into the corridor and said with a smile, "Mu Weining, I heard that you're going to Shanghai University to study as a graduate student. I didn't expect that you'd really come. It seems that we'll be schoolmates in the future." Mu Weining chuckled and said, "Then can I call you Junior Brother Tang? I'm a graduate student, and you're just a freshman." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "I think it's better for you to call me by my name." "Say it. Is there something you need from me?" Mu Weining said with a smile. "Can't I come to you for no reason? I heard from teacher that you invited him out for lunch." "Teacher? Labai?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "There's something I need Professor Li's help with. It just happened to be lunchtime, so we went out for lunch together." Mu Weining nodded and said, "I heard from teacher. Do you have time tonight? I'll treat you to dinner." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "I've made an appointment with my classmates to invite them to dinner. If you want to come with us, then come over. If you don't want to, then another day." Mu Weining hesitated for a moment before she shook her head and said, "I'm not going. I'm not familiar with your classmates. Let's do it tomorrow. Let's meet at the campus gate tomorrow evening." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded. Mu Weining said with a smile, "I was worried that you wouldn't be easy to get along with before, but after I learned from Tang Ying that you're her younger brother, I was completely relieved." "Tang Ying?" Tan Xiu was confused. "You know her?" Mu Weining smiled and said, "We are best friends who have played together since we were young." Tan Xiu smiled bitterly and said, "The world is quite small. All right, it's time for me to return to the classroom. Let's exchange contact information and meet tomorrow evening." "All right." After exchanging phone numbers, Mu Weining left with a smile. When Tan Xiu returned to the classroom, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Han Qinggu didn't say anything, but when Tan Xiu returned to his seat, Yukai, Hu Qingsong, and the others quickly leaned over. "Big Bro Tang, my dear brother. By the way, who was that beauty just now?" Hu Qingsong asked intimately as he wrapped his arms around Tan Xiu's shoulders with a northeastern accent. Zhao Liang also asked in a hurry. "Yes." "Boss Tang, you can't hide it. A beauty of that level was really, really beautiful. I'm willing to live 10 years less if I can have such a beauty as my girlfriend. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at them and helplessly said, I'm not familiar with her. We just had a meal together. Since we knew each other before, she came over to chat with me when she heard that I was studying at Shanghai University. If you guys want to pursue her, I can help you pull some strings. She's mine. You can't snatch her from me, Yu Kai hurriedly said. Big bro Tang, big brother Tang, can you tell me her contact information? I'll treat you tonight. I'll treat you to a big meal tonight. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, It's not convenient for me to tell you her contact information though. But I'll ask her tomorrow. If she's willing to get to know you, I'll tell you her contact information at that time. After all, that mobile number is her privacy. At this moment, Yu Kai showed a magnanimous spirit as he raised his thumb and praised. Big bro Tang is indeed big bro Tang. You know how to respect beauties. No problem. I'll wait for your good news tomorrow. If you insist on treating us tonight, I won't snatch her from you. After we eat and drink to our heart's content, I'll treat everyone to the best KTV in Shanghai. Hu Qingsong grinned and said, Big bro Tang, we can't favor one and discriminate against the other. You gotta give us her contact information too. Zhao Liang nodded and said, That's right. A fair and graceful lady is a gentleman's dream. Since we don't have a girlfriend, then let's pursue her together. Whoever could win the heart of a beauty, that would depend on his ability. In any case, I know that even if we brothers don't do it, there will be countless cheap men who will throw themselves at her. Yu Kai gave it a thought and felt that Zhao Liang was right. Any man would be attracted to a woman of that level. But nowadays there were many bold men, so there must be a lot of flies circling around her. Alright. But we brothers have to agree that no one can play dirty tricks. If anyone can win the heart of the beauty and win her heart, everyone must give their sincere blessings. No problem. Agreed. Good. The 7 or 8 guys around Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction. Tan Xiu looked at their appearance and was secretly speechless. He looked at Han Qingwu's eyes and pretended not to see anything. Then he said in a low voice, Brothers, Miss Han is a bit dissatisfied with us talking here. As for how to pursue the beauty, let's talk about it after we leave the classroom, shall we? Alright. Everyone looked at Han Qingwu and found that Han Qingwu's expression didn't look good, so they immediately straightened up. Yu Kai raised his hand to cover his mouth and said, Big bro Tang, it's really a pity. You already have a great beauty like Miss Han, so you can't snatch her from us. Rest assured, we brothers will compensate you. Hu Qingsong will wash your socks for a few months. Hu Qingsong vaguely heard Yu Kai's words and quickly bowed his head and said, Go to hell, Yu Kai. Why don't you wash Big bro Tang's socks for a few months? I'll treat you to dinner. I have money too. Tan Xiu heard the two of them quarreling in a low voice. He immediately stretched his hand and twisted their waists. As their faces changed, he whispered, If you two keep quarreling, I won't give you my contact number. There were only a few things in the class in the afternoon. They elected a temporary class cadre. What made Tan Xiu speechless was that he didn't want to participate in the election. Yet everyone unanimously voted to give him the position of class monitor. Another girl was elected as the deputy class monitor. Soon, the other class cadre were also elected. Although it was temporary, Han Qingwu still took everyone to get their books. After everyone got their textbooks, Han Qingwu directly announced the dismissal. Tan Xiu, stay here. Han Qingwu called out to Tan Xiu, who was about to leave. Standing next to Tan Xiu, Yu Kai quickly took out the BMW key and threw it to Tan Xiu. He winked and shouted, Big bro Tang, if you go out on a date, drive my car. If you don't come back tonight, I'll treat you to dinner tonight. Also, I won't leave the dormitory door for you. Get lost. Tang Xiu caught the car key and threw it back to him with a smile. Moreover, Yu Kai's group also helped him take the textbooks back to the dormitory. Han Qingwu stared at Yu Kai with a funny and angry expression. She was a college student, so she naturally knew the meaning behind Yu Kai's words. If you talk nonsense again, I'll make you fail your English course. Brothers, let's go. Yu Kai hastily ran away after hearing it. Strolling on the tree-lined trail in the campus, Han Qingwu didn't speak, and neither did Tan Xiu. Just like that, the two of them walked aimlessly. Finally, Han Qinggu turned to look at Tan Xiao and asked, "Who's the belle who looked for you before? I thought you could hold back and not ask." Tan Xiao said with a smile. "She's Professor Li's student, and she's a postgraduate student at Shanghai University this year. I met Professor Lu in Tianjin City, and also met her at the same time." Han Qinggu suddenly understood and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that you're quite popular with girls. I remember that when we were in Xingqing No. 1 high school, there was a belle who came to look for you, right? How can I be popular with girls?" Tan Xiao forced a smile. "I'm busy with all kinds of things every day, and I'm exhausted to death. Besides, I don't want to fall in love so early. I feel depressed every time you Kai and the others tease me. Why don't you want to fall in love so early?" Han Qinggu was surprised. Isn't college the best time to fall in love? "I'm very busy," Tan Xiao shook his head and said. "I have to study and do a lot of work at the same time. Love doesn't mean much to me." Han Qinggu was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh. "Why do I feel like you've seen through the vicissitudes of life from your words? Are you the reincarnation of an old man who has lived for more than 100 years? What do you mean by reincarnation?" Tan Xiao said with a smile. Suddenly, Tan Xiao's expression changed. It was like a thunderclap had exploded inside his heart, causing his body to tremble twice in an instant. Reincarnation? He suddenly realized the situation. If Xue Qingqing died in the immortal world, could she possibly be reincarnated on Earth? One must know. The immortal world was one of the billions of worlds, and the hell samsara I was the place that governed the reincarnation cycle. When people in the immortal world died, as long as their souls didn't scatter, they could be reincarnated in the immortal world, or they could be reincarnated in billions of small worlds. And Earth was one of the billions of small worlds. "What's wrong with you, Tan Xiao?" Han Qinggu was keenly aware of Tan Xiao's abnormality and asked. Tan Xiao was silent for a moment and suddenly asked, "Do you have 3 red moles on your left shoulder?" Han Qinggu was dumbfounded. There was a look of disbelief in her eyes as she asked in surprise, "How did you know? I've never exposed my shoulder even when it's very hot, have I?" "Really?" Tan Xiao's pupils shrank. "Yes, I've had them since I was born," said Han Qinggu. "They're 3 very small red moles, like a triangular pattern. My parents told me when I was a child that these 3 red moles are like a beautiful pattern, so I don't need to get a tattoo." Tan Xiao's face was a bit pale. He stared at Han Qinggu and said word by word, "Who the hell are you?" Han Qinggu was stunned, and her footsteps stopped in an instant. She asked with a puzzled look, "What are you talking about?" "I'm me." Chapter 335. Looking at Han Qinggu's inexplicable expression, Tan Xiao's heart was in a complete mess at this moment. He had faintly guessed that Han Qinggu should be Xue Qingqing, but he couldn't figure out how Xue Qingqing could have an accident when he had just died in the immortal world for such a short period of time. Logically speaking, they should be celebrating their victory and cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis cultivation method that he had given them before. Right now, they should be celebrating their victory and cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis with all their might, right? The immortal world. What the hell happened? How did Xue Qingqing reincarnate? Tan Xiao, what happened to you? Han Qinggu grabbed Tan Xiao's shoulder and asked with a concerned expression. Tan Xiao took a deep breath and temporarily suppressed his chaotic mood. He raised his hand and pushed Han Qinggu's hand away. He shook his head and said, "Miss Han, I just remembered that I still have something to do. If you don't have anything else, I won't accompany you to chat anymore. Goodbye." Hey. Tan Xiao ignored Han Qinggu's shouts and strode toward the campus gate. He needed to calm down. Although he wasn't 100% sure that Han Qinggu was Xue Qingqing, the two were too similar. Their appearance was similar, their behavior was similar, and they even had the same 3 red moles on their shoulders. Xue Qingqing once told him that the 3 red moles would accompany her forever. Even if she reincarnated and entered the samsara, she would still bring those 3 red moles with her. But now, Tan Xiao didn't know how he should face Han Qinggu. Kill her? Tan Xiu just looked at her puzzled expression and couldn't bear to do it. Get her again? Tan Xiu recalled the scene when he was killed in the immortal world. His heart felt like it was being torn apart. How could he get her again? How could he have the slightest romantic feelings with her? Bewildered. With this mood, Tan Xiu returned to the Blue Star Villa complex. After taking a shower, he put on his pajamas and sat on the bed. He needed to calm down. After a long while, only then did Tan Xiu slowly calm down. He had already thought it through. If Han Qingwu was really Xue Qingcheng, he would definitely kill her with his own hands. However, before the final confirmation, he needed to keep his distance from Han Qingwu. Let's go out for some fresh air. Tan Xiu put on his clothes and dialed Yu Kai's number. Where? I'm in the dormitory. I'm on my way to the hospital. Tan Xiu said. I'll be waiting for you at the campus gate. Hurry up and come here. Let's go to the hospital together. Yu Kai made a fuss and said, Aren't you dating Miss Han? How? Tan Xiu said. Don't ever say that I'm dating Han Qingwu again. We really don't have anything. If you keep talking, I won't give you the number of beauties in the future. I promise I won't say it again. Wait for us. Yu Kai hurriedly said, and then hung up the phone. Tan Xiu walked out of the villa and glanced at the garage door. He felt like crying and laughing inwardly. He didn't want to be too high profile, but it was really inconvenient for him to drive out the 4 cars in the garage, especially to see his classmates. He was considering whether he should buy a cheap car to drive in the future. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu came to the campus gate and found that Yu Kai and the others hadn't come out yet. Tan Xiu bought a pack of cigarettes in the nearby supermarket and lit it up for a few puffs. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows because someone he didn't want to see actually appeared in his line of sight. There was also that group of scoundrel friends around him. Can't that group of second-generation nouveau riche live a normal life? Living a befuddled life all day and wasting away their youth. It's really meaningless. Tan Xiu looked at them from afar. Looking at those supercars around them, he secretly shook his head. About 2 minutes later, a BMW drove out of the campus. When it stopped at the corner of the campus gate, Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, Zhao Liang, and the others came out. Oh, isn't this young Master Yu? TSK. Being admitted to Shanghai University is really different. Especially his taste. It's getting more and more trashy. He even mingles with a bunch of unsophisticated students. With a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, Li Zhen leaned on the front of the supercar and loudly said to Yu Kai, who was more than 10 meters away. Ha, he's just a good-for-nothing. If it wasn't for Yu Yang's protection, he would be nothing. Another youth with dyed blonde hair ridiculed loudly. Yu Kai's complexion suddenly changed after seeing Li Zhen's group. An angry look appeared on his beautiful face as he shouted, Li Zhen, Qin Yuxing, are you looking for trouble? Li Zhen rolled his eyes and smilingly scolded. This father is looking for trouble. So what? Do you want to play with us? Hu Qingsong strode forward as he looked at Li Zhen's group and said, If you want to fight, then we'll accompany you to play. This father has never been afraid of anyone except my old man at home. Li Zhen's complexion changed. He waved his hand and walked toward Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong's group. Standing in the distance, Tan Xiu looked at Li Zhen and Yu Kai's group with a helpless expression. The reason why he made a race bet with Li Zhen in Changxi City was not entirely because he didn't like Li Zhen. The main reason was that he would often get along with Yu Kai in the future, so he hoped that Li Zhen would stay away from him, so that he wouldn't have to help solve the conflict between the two of them. But now, they unexpectedly bumped into each other at the entrance of Shanghai University. With one hand in his trouser pocket and the other holding a cigarette, Tan Xiu walked toward the two groups. When he was more than 10 meters away from them, his footsteps flashed and he instantly moved 4 to 5 meters forward. Scram. Tan Xiu glanced at Li Zhen and lightly said. After clearly seeing Tan Xiu, Li Zhen's complexion suddenly changed. Beside him, a youth who had never seen Tan Xiu rolled up his sleeves and cursed. Where the fuck did you come from? Why are you meddling in our business? Are you looking for a beating? Slap. Tan Xiu's footsteps didn't stop. He strode to the front of the youth and fiercely slapped him. His speed was fast, and he also used a bit of strength. The youth was directly sent flying 4 to 5 meters away, heavily smashing on the ground and fainting. Why haven't you scrammed yet? Tan Xiu looked at Li Zhen again. Li Zhen's complexion was a bit unsightly, and so were the 7 or 8 youths around him. However, they didn't speak rudely like the youth who was slapped. They just angrily glared at Tan Xiu. Scram! Li Zhen gritted his teeth and quickly walked to the fainted youth. After pulling him up from the ground, a group of people carried the unconscious youth away. What's going on? Yu Kai was dumbfounded. Hu Qingsong was stunned, while Zhao Liang and the other person were dumbfounded. The group of people who had just confronted them with tit for tat just now unexpectedly left with their tails between their legs? What did he mean by we scram? With difficulty, Yu Kai turned his head to look at Tan Xiu and asked, Big Bro Tang, what's going on? That bastard Li Zhen seems to be afraid of you? Yeah. Zhao Liang also nodded and said, how come he looked like a mouse seeing a cat when he saw you? It's nothing. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Maybe it's because I look scary, or maybe they saw our people coming, so they left with their tails between their legs. Yu Kai shook his head and said, Big Bro Tang, we're brothers who share the same bed with each other. Don't hide it. I've known Li Zhen since I was a kid. Those guys are not pushovers. They won't be afraid even if our people are doubled. It's not only Li Zhen. Except for the kid who was slapped, everyone else looks at you with fear in their eyes. All right. Tan Xiu forced a smile. I was bored last night, so I ran to Changxi City's Laoshan Mountain. I had a race with Li Zhen, and the bet was that he would immediately avoid me when he saw me later. He lost, so he just left. You mean you raced with him on the Laoshan Highway? You won? It's a win. Tan Xiu nodded and said, though I'm not the champion, I got the second place. Yu Kai's lips squirmed and he suddenly said, Big Bro Tang, I just realized that you're the one who hid your abilities. You should be very. Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt Yu Kai's words and said, I'm very capable. You just need to worship me. All right, let's go to the hospital. Also, this car of yours doesn't seem to be able to seat so many of us. Yu Kai opened his mouth, but he swallowed the words he wanted to say back into his stomach. He was a smart man, else he wouldn't have been admitted to Shanghai University. From Tan Xiu's reaction, he could tell that Tan Xiu didn't want him to say the rest. Big Bro Tang and I will take a taxi. Hu Qingsong said, remember to wait for us at the gate if you arrive at the hospital ahead of time. All right. Yu Kai hesitated for a moment before he nodded. As the BMW left, Hu Qingsong turned his head and looked at Tan Xiu, saying with a smile, Big Bro Tang, Yu Kai just wanted to say that you're also very rich, right? I really didn't expect that you, who always kept a low profile, turned out to be a rich second generation. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, what do you mean I'm rich? I think it's more interesting to spend my family's money than my own. So aside from the gifts from my family, the money I spend is all earned by myself. You earned it yourself? Hu Qingsong was surprised. How did you earn it? Tan Xiu smiled and said, I opened a company, sold calligraphy and paintings, and became a doctor. Shortly put, I do whatever I can to make money. Hu Qingsong rolled his eyes. He didn't believe Tan Xiu's words at all and smilingly scolded, Big Bro Tang, I just found out that you're the best at bragging among us all. Don't you think that bragging is also a kind of skill? Tan Xiu said with a smile. There's a saying that having a good mouth is better than having a good heart. These days, people who are good with words are very popular. That's a fallacy. Hu Qingsong said. Those who talk extravagantly but don't do things well are not good people. Hee hee. Hu Qingsong didn't want to talk about this topic anymore and said, let's go. Don't let Yu Kai and the others wait for too long. Immediately, the duo stopped a taxi and rushed to the Shanghai hospital. Looking at Quiet Night's sincerity, brothers and sisters, you must throw your guaranteed monthly tickets to Quiet Night. Thank you very much. Chapter 336. Shanghai Dynasty Clubhouse. Expensive supercars roared into the clubhouse's entrance and stopped in the parking lot. Several security guards of the clubhouse hurriedly helped open the door. Take Yuji inside. Li Jun got off the car and ordered with an indifferent expression. Shortly after, Li Jun and his group entered the clubhouse's main building and took the elevator straight to the third floor where there was a magnificent and spacious hall. The security guards who followed them put the unconscious youth on the sofa and then left. Too arrogant. He's really too arrogant. Big brother Jun, I can't swallow this humiliation. A youth dressed in strange clothes angrily shouted. Li Jun coldly glanced at him and asked, You can't swallow this humiliation, but do you think we can? The key is, we have no way to retaliate. The youth furrowed his brows and angrily said, Why can't we retaliate? Don't tell me that Brat has some skills and we have to swallow this humiliation? Yuji was beaten by him, and he hasn't woken up yet. I'm afraid he got a concussion. Li Jun looked at Yuji lying on the sofa in front of him. He lit a cigarette and sat on the sofa in silence. If he hadn't met Tan Xiao in Changxi and experienced that race, he wouldn't have hesitated to retaliate against Tan Xiao and make Tan Xiao suffer. But he absolutely couldn't and didn't dare to do that now. Big brother Jun, say something. We can't really avoid him according to the original bet, can we? Since childhood, those who stand on our heads and shit on us have never had a good ending, right? The youth angrily shouted. Li Jun took a deep breath and forced a smile. Do you think I don't want to deal with that guy? But if our revenge fails and he knows that we're the ones who did it, I'm afraid we'll all be screwed. The youth stared blankly and asked with a confused expression. What do you mean? Li Jun said in a deep voice. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll emerge victorious in every battle. But do we know anything about that surname Tang? Rashly provoking a powerful character will only bring us bad luck. Also, there's something I didn't tell you. Qinan wanted to kill Huan Yu in the race last night. If it wasn't for Tan Xiao, Huan Yu would already be a dead man. The youth said in confusion. After the race yesterday, I did hear Huan Yu mention this. Could it be true? Yes, it's true. Li Jun nodded. I've observed the scene of the accident, and I've also observed Huan Yu's car. It was just as he said. If it weren't for Tan Xiao, he would have been killed by Qinan. It could be seen that Qinan was a cruel and merciless woman who treated human life as grass. And that woman was actually so respectful in front of Tan Xiao. Haven't you figured out the crux of the problem? Brother Jun, you mean? Tan Xiao has a very powerful background? The young man asked in surprise. Li Jun sneered. The Everlasting Feast Hall is one of the top restaurants in Shanghai. I'm afraid the big boss behind the scenes is not simple. I suspect that Tan Xiao has a deep relationship with the Everlasting Feast Hall. If you want to deal with Tan Xiao, then first investigate his background. Otherwise, if you act rashly, it's very likely that you'll be the unlucky ones. For a moment, the other 5 people fell into silence. If Li Jun's analysis was correct, then they really wouldn't dare to act rashly against Tan Xiao. After all, the other party's background shouldn't be small since he could make a cruel and merciless woman like Qinan respect him. If they were to provoke him, the other party might send someone to kill them. Let's wait until Gigi wakes up. Li Jun sighed inwardly. He grabbed the beer on the table, opened it, and gulped it down. Shanghai First Public Hospital. After getting off the taxi, Tan Xiao and Hu Qingsong saw Yu Kai and the others already waiting at the entrance. The group of 6 bought fruit baskets nearby, and then rushed to the inpatient department's ward that Yu Kai had inquired about. Room 608 of the inpatient department. Xue Chao was leaning on the bed with a bored expression. His mobile was spinning in his palm, but he didn't have the mood to look at it. He came out from the ravine, intending to come to the big city to see the world and learn something useful. He didn't expect that on the first day in Shanghai, Hong Kong, he would be injured. We were careless. We were really careless. Those little brats only knew a little bit of martial arts, but they were stabbed by them in the end. If my dad knew about this, he would probably jump out of his grave and beat me up. Damn it, I can't say anything about this. I definitely can't say anything about this. Otherwise, my precious son will definitely laugh at me in the future. Xue Chao yawned and became even more listless. However, he had also benefited from saving people. Thinking about the school's promise to waive all his tuition fees, a smile appeared on his face. His family didn't have much money to begin with, and with so much money left, he would be able to buy milk powder for his son. Make money. I have to make money. My old man is useless, but I can't let my son think that I'm useless in the future. When I'm not busy with my studies, I'll go work. Damn it, I've done that for a while. No problem. Absolutely no problem. He's a kid from the mountains, and he's the son of a hunter. Absolutely no problem. As he thought about it, he looked at the two beds next to him. One of them was a young man about his age. He had delicate skin, wore glasses and looked gentle. His parents were watching over him, and his grandparents were accompanying him. Even his aunt had been here for a few hours. Suddenly, he was a bit envious of that spoiled kid. He accidentally broke his leg. Did his whole family have to come here? How boring. He wailed deep in his heart as he turned to look out of the window. Who's Xue Chao? A shout with a thick northeastern accent came from the door of the ward. Xue Chao was stunned. When he saw a group of young men about his age enter the ward, his expression suddenly changed. In a flash, his hand had already grabbed the steel nail hidden under the pillow. Could it be that the accomplices of those criminals came to the hospital to take revenge on me? He muttered in his heart. A cold light instantly appeared in his eyes. I am. Hu Qingsong strode forward. He saw Xue Chao's dark skin and bulging muscles. He immediately exclaimed, You're Xue Chao? Not bad, not bad. Although you're not as handsome as me, your physique is great. Let me introduce myself. I'm Hu Qingsong. You can call me Old Hu or Qingsong. Of course, you can also call me Brother Hu. Xue Chao's eyes moved away from Hu Qingsong. When he saw someone carrying a fruit basket behind him, his tense heart slightly relaxed and asked, Who are you? Hu Qingsong stared blankly for a moment. He suddenly realized that he had just said a lot of nonsense. An awkward expression appeared on his face as he said, We're from Shanghai University. This is Yu Kai, and he's Tan Xiao. The three of us are from the same dormitory. That's Xiao Liang, Yang Hu, and Sun Xiaoquan. They're from the opposite dormitory. That's right, we're all classmates. Classmates? Xue Chao looked at them. His hand holding the steel nail stretched under the quilt and said with a smile, Hello, classmates. I didn't expect that everyone would come to see me. Yu Kai sat on the bedside and said with a smile, You're a big hero in our hearts. We've been discussing about coming to see you ever since we heard about your glorious deeds. We'll be brothers in the same trench for the next 4 years. Hu Qingsong also said with a smile, That's right. It's said that a lifetime of classmates will be close friends for 8 lifetimes. We're not only classmates but will also live together in the future, so we're even closer. It's a pity that I'm not a woman, else I'd definitely let my brothers have a good time first. Cough, cough, Xue Chao choked on his saliva and looked at Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong with a strange expression. He secretly sighed inwardly, What the hell are these classmates of mine? Tan Xiao approached Xue Chao a few steps and said, How come you're the only one here? Is there no one to take care of you? Xue Chao waved his hand and said, I came to study by myself, so there's no one to take care of me. Besides, it's just a minor injury. I'll be discharged in 2 days. I still have to go back to school. Tan Xiao said, I'll contact the hospital's nurses later. They'll take care of your daily needs. Also, we'll come to you more often when we have nothing to do. Just tell us if you need anything. Xue Chao stared blankly at Tan Xiao. After a while he shook his head and said, No need, no need. This injury is really nothing. Don't waste money. It's not easy to earn money these days. Tan Xiao said with a smile. You don't need to worry about money. Just focus on recuperating, and immediately tell us if you have any problem. Don't decline it. If you do, you'll be treating us as strangers. This. Xue Chao hesitated for a moment before he finally nodded. Xue Chao, I heard that you single-handedly knocked down 3 criminals? Have you ever practiced martial arts before? Yu Kai asked. No. My home is in the mountains. Xueqiao shook his head and said, "My ancestors have been hunters for generations. Although I've never practiced martial arts, I've been a monkey in the mountains since childhood. If it weren't for me studying hard these past few years, let alone 3 criminals, even 3 more would have been enough to kill them." Hunters? Yukai's eyes lit up as he praised. Amazing. I've heard that hunters are very powerful, but I didn't expect that I would finally see it today. Speaking of which, our group of classmates is really a group of powerhouses. Old who has just arrived at the campus. Yet he's the hero who saved the damsel in distress and knocked down several hooligans. Those hooligans came to retaliate, but Big Brother Tang showed his invincible might and beat them until they pissed their pants. Now, with you at it, our dormitory has 4 great guardian deities. 4 great guardian deities? Tan Xiao took a step back and directly turned his face to the side, indicating that he didn't know him. Hu Qingsong looked at Yukai with contempt and said, "I say, old you, don't talk nonsense. 4 great guardian deities? It's not a problem for the 3 of us to stand up and clean up a few hooligans. But you look better than a woman, so I'm afraid you're just a show-off, aren't you? What guardian deity? I think you're more like a goddess." Duel. Yukai angrily shouted. "I'm sorry. Today is Monday. The TV station has been holding regular meetings, and then there's a gathering at the office after work. Quiet Night has been working hard to finish writing 1 chapter. Tonight, Quiet Night will continue to work overnight and strive to finish updating 3 chapters. Brothers and sisters, please leave your monthly tickets." Chapter 337. Tan Xiao said in a deep voice. His breathing is weak, his complexion is ashen, and his pupils are showing signs of dilation. I'm afraid he can't wait to be sent to the operating room. Get out of my way, I'll treat him. The man angrily shouted. Who are you? What right do you have to treat him? Who will take responsibility if something happens? I'll take responsibility. Tan Xiao snorted coldly. He pushed the 2 nurses away and quickly checked the patient's injury. This is bad. His lung was pierced by a broken bone, and there's a lot of extravasated blood inside his body. We must drain his blood and clean the broken bone that pierced his lung. Tan Xiao suddenly turned his head and looked at the man, shouting, 2 minutes. If you can't give me a set of silver needles in 2 minutes, then you'll be the one who killed him. Go and find a set of silver needles. What's going on? The doctor who made Tan Xiao take the initiative to help because of his roar had just sent a patient to the emergency building's entrance when he found that 2 trolleys had stopped. He immediately ran over and shouted angrily. The doctor who had just been berated by Tan Xiao quickly said, Director Hu, this bastard is obstructing us from going in. He's still spouting nonsense here. The man who was called Director Hu was startled after seeing the patient's condition. When his eyes glanced at Tan Xiao, who was checking the patient's pulse, he asked in a deep voice, Who the hell are you? Don't interfere with our treatment of the patient. Don't you know that saving a life is like fighting a fire? I'm also a doctor, Tan Xiao said in a deep voice. I just heard you say that the hospital doesn't have enough doctors and operating rooms, so I came to help. I don't care who you are, but cut the crap. I've already diagnosed him. He'll die in 2 minutes at most if you don't find the silver needles. Director Hu stared blankly and immediately said to the doctor who had just reported to him, Go find the silver needles immediately. Be quick. Understood. The doctor was a bit reluctant, but he still ran away in big strides. Director Hu then looked at Tan Xiao again and asked, You shouldn't be a doctor in our hospital, right? Where are you working now? I just saw you feeling the pulse of the injured. Are you a traditional Chinese medicine doctor? Tan Xiao replied in a deep voice, Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, Tan Xiao. Star City Chinese Medical Hospital? The Chinese medical hospital that had become famous in recent months, and was rumored to have a young miracle-working doctor? Moreover, the name Tan Xiao seemed very familiar. Director Hu raised his brows and suddenly asked, Are you the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital? Tan Xiao quickly glanced at him and lightly said, It's not the time to talk about it now. Immediately send all the heavily wounded here. Also, get the people around to disperse and ensure air circulation. Also, help me get a few basins of water and clean towels. Also, ask the doctors in your hospital to bring the suturing tools and cooperate with me. Dean, who hesitated. He didn't know if he should trust Tan Xiao. After all, Tan Xiao looked too young. Even if he used to be a doctor, he really didn't know how to make a decision in such an emergency. I need to report this to the dean. President Zhuge will be here soon. Tan Xiao didn't answer him, but quickly stopped the bleeding on the wounded's wound. Inside the emergency building, President Zhuge Wenfeng was followed by several hospital leaders as he strode outside. He received a call from the fire department and immediately ordered to prepare to receive the wounded. Due to the accidental collapse of the construction site, dozens of workers were seriously injured. As the hospital's president, he must rescue as many wounded as possible in such a big accident. Even though he hadn't entered the operating room for half a year, he was ready to perform the surgery himself. What's going on? Why did you stop here? After Zhuge Wenfeng ran outside the emergency building and saw the scene in front of him, he immediately shouted. Hu Qiubuo's eyes lit up. He strode forward and repeated Tan Xiao's words from beginning to end. Finally, he said, President, I think he's a Chinese medical doctor, so what? Can you joke about this? Take him. Oh my God. This wounded man's wound is no longer bleeding. What method did that person use just now? A nurse next to the trolley nearby suddenly shouted. Her voice directly interrupted Zhuge Wenfeng's words. Zhuge Wenfeng's complexion changed. He strode to the trolley and asked in a deep voice, What's the situation? The nurse was obviously a bit nervous when she saw the president personally come over. She stuttered, The president, he just treated the wounded, and the wound is no longer bleeding. Zhuge Wenfeng suddenly turned his head and looked at Tan Xiao, asking loudly, You said you're a doctor from Star City Chinese Medical Hospital? And your name is Tan Xiao? Yes. Tan Xiao, who had just stopped the bleeding of the wounded in front of him, simply replied to the doctor. Zhuge Wenfeng quickly took out his mobile and dialed a cell number. After the call was connected, he quickly asked, Is this President Li Hongji? I'm Zhuge Wenfeng from Shanghai's First People's Hospital. We've been in contact before, and we've also met at the Imperial City's Medical Exchange. Haha, it's President Zhuge. What wind brought your voice here today? Is there something you need from me? Li Hongji's voice came out of the phone. Zhuge Wenfeng said, Yes. I want to ask you about someone. Is there a young doctor called Tan Xiao in your Star City Chinese Medical Hospital? Li Hongji stared blankly and asked, Why are you asking about Tan Xiao? He's indeed a doctor from our hospital. Zhuge Wenfeng said, There was an accident at a construction site in Shanghai, and a lot of seriously injured people have appeared. He stopped the doctors from our hospital to treat the wounded. Let him treat them. Li Hongji replied without hesitation. Zhuge Wenfeng stared blankly and asked, Is his medical skill very good? President Li, you must know that the injured people are very seriously injured. If they can't be treated in time, I'm afraid. Li Hongji said in a deep voice. President Zhuge, if I remember correctly, you contacted me more than a month ago to see the young divine doctor of our hospital, right? That's right. Tan Xiao is that young divine doctor. You should be glad that he can help your hospital treat the wounded people. What? He's the young divine doctor? That's right. Zhuge Wenfeng was shocked. After hanging up the phone, he looked at Tan Xiao and then turned to look at the injured people around him. Suddenly he said aloud, Send this injured person to be checked. Also, assign this Dr. Tang to treat the wounded. I'll be responsible for any problems that arise. Yes. Although Hu Qiubuo and the other leaders, as well as the nurses, didn't understand why the president gave such an important task to Tan Xiao, they still carried it out seriously. Zhuge Wenfeng turned to look at Tan Xiao and sighed. I never thought that the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital that I wanted to see would turn out to be you. Li Hongji is right. It's really a lucky thing to be able to see you. Tan Xiao faintly looked at Zhuge Wenfeng and didn't say anything. He was afraid of trouble. He was afraid that Zhuge Wenfeng would be as annoying as Li Hongji. He came to Shanghai to study and didn't want to be hired to work in Shanghai's first public hospital. The silver needles are here. A doctor in a white coat quickly returned. Tan Xiu took the silver needles and said in a deep voice, "Tell the surrounding people to disperse. The farther the better. Also, tell the hospital's doctors to prepare, and leave the most seriously injured people to wait for me to deal with them. As for the other injured people, your hospital's doctors will bring them to the operating room for treatment." Zhuge Wenfeng immediately nodded and passed down Tan Xiu's order. The silver needles were inserted into the acupoints to block the internal bleeding problem of the wounded. After Tan Xiu injected his star force, he carefully guided the extravasated blood into the throat. Cough, cough. 2 minutes later, the wounded person coughed and spat out a mouthful of black blood. After the wounded person spat out the 6th mouthful of blood, Tan Xiu grabbed him and sat him on the cart, while Tan Xiu's palm pressed the wounded person's back. "Scalpel," Tan Xiu said in a deep voice. At this time, the hospital had already sent a neat set of surgical knives. When a doctor opened the knife box, Tan Xiu glanced at it and directly took out a sharp-looking knife. Without hesitation, he cut the muscle in front of the man's lung. This, Zhuge Wenfeng was dumbfounded. The leaders of the first public hospital were dumbfounded. Even the surrounding doctors and nurses were dumbfounded. They had never thought that someone would perform surgery on someone else in public. Moreover, it seemed to be so violent. Tan Xiu put the knife aside, took a pair of forceps, and put them directly into the wound. 2 seconds. That's right. It was definitely only 2 seconds. Zhuge Wenfeng and the others saw with their own eyes that Tan Xiu put the forceps into the wounded person's wound and quickly took it out. The place where the forceps were clamped was a piece of bone the size of a grain of rice. Oh my God! How did he know there was a broken bone inside? Hu Qiubu's eyes widened and he exclaimed in disbelief. His shock and confusion were also shared by the others. Tan Xiu ignored Hu Qiubu and kept putting the forceps into the wounded person's wound, and then took out the broken bone inside. Finally, Tan Xiu took a deep breath, highly concentrated, and put the forceps in again. Under the observation of his divine sense, he carefully took out the broken bone inserted into the lung. Your hospital should have a cardiac stimulant, right? You must inject it into his body within 5 minutes. Also, let the doctors in your hospital stitch up his wound. Tan Xiu left a trace of star power in the wounded person's lung and turned his head. Zhuge Wenfeng immediately asked someone to get the cardiac stimulant, and then asked in confusion, "That's it?" Tan Xiu nodded and said, "That's right. I've already taken out the broken bone inserted into his lung. The broken bone in the wound has also been taken out, and it will be fine as long as it is sutured. However, his heartbeat is slowing down rapidly. Although I've taken some measures, I can only help to alleviate it. After the cardiac stimulant is injected, I'm afraid he will be unconscious for a long time, but his life will not be in danger." Zhuge Wenfeng's eyes were like torches as he stared deeply at Tan Xiu and asked, "How did you do it?" Tan Xiu said, "Every doctor has their own talent and ability, and this is my talent and ability. Don't waste time, and take me to see the other seriously injured people." "All right." Zhuge Wenfeng no longer asked. Suddenly, a nurse whispered, "Did you notice that when Dr. Tang treated the wounds of the wounded people didn't bleed? Today's outbreak is over." Seeking recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 338. The nurse's words made everyone who was about to leave stop in their tracks. A group of hospital leaders headed by Zhuge Wenfeng, 2 doctors, and many nurses all looked at the patient just now. No bleeding? Everyone's face revealed a horrified expression. Zhuge Wenfeng observed for more than 10 seconds, watching Tan Xiu's back as he was about to enter the emergency building. He was shocked to the point that it was hard to be more shocked. He had been a doctor for decades and had seen countless medical cases, big and small, as well as countless operations for the wounded. But he had never seen an operation where the wound of the patient didn't bleed. Especially when Tan Xiu cut open the patient's muscles and took out the broken bones from the lungs, there was no normal blood gushing out. Hu Qiubu's lips squirmed a few times as he muttered to himself. "I saw him poke a few times around the wound of the patient. Don't tell me he used the acupoint sealing technique to stop bleeding?" Acupoint sealing technique to stop bleeding? Zhuge Wenfeng's expression changed as he hurriedly asked, "Are you sure he poked a few times around the patient's wound?" Hu Qiubo nodded heavily and said, "Yes. I'm not the only one who saw it. Many others also saw it." Zhuge Wenfeng looked at the others and found that many of them nodded. He immediately strode forward and chased after Tan Xiao. He needed to observe Tan Xiao's treatment method and figure out how Tan Xiao did it. Outside the operating room on the second floor, 7 or 8 migrant workers surrounded more than a dozen nurses, shouting loudly. They followed their workers to the hospital, but the hospital didn't have enough operating rooms. What angered them the most was that the doctors only sent their workers with light injuries into the operating room, leaving 4 workers with the most serious injuries waiting outside the operating room. "Don't be agitated. This is an order from the president himself. A very powerful doctor has come to our hospital. He will personally treat these 4 patients with the most serious injuries. Also, please step back a bit. You're all surrounding here. The mess will affect the doctor's treatment," a nurse said loudly. A dark-skinned, thin middle-aged man said loudly, "You're not lying, are you? Our brothers have the most serious injuries, but where's the best doctor you said? Don't you know that saving people is like fighting a fire? What if?" "There's no what if." A cold voice came from behind them. Tan Xiao pushed away the people who were blocking him and quickly circled around the patients on the 4 trolleys. His eyes finally locked on one of the patients. Cough, cough. The wounded man coughed out 2 mouthfuls of blood and abruptly sat up from the cart. The steel bar that had pierced through his chest was more than 20 centimeters long. The moment he abruptly sat up, he shouted with all his might, "Pillar! Pillar! Yes, Brother Daquan, I'm here." The dark-skinned and lean middle-aged man rushed to his front and hurriedly said, "Brother Daquan, don't speak first. The doctor will be here in a moment, Blue veins bulged on Daquan's forehead. He squeezed out a smile and said with great difficulty, "Zhu Zi, my injury. I know. Promise me, to take care of my family." Zhu Zi's tears flowed down and wet his clothes. He raised his hand to wipe his tears and said loudly, I know. Don't worry, Brother Daquan. Your parents will be my parents in the future. I'll take care of them until they die. Xiulan and I will also help take care of sister-in-law and the child. You can rest assured." Thank you, brother." Daquan coughed out another mouthful of blood and his body softly fell on the cart. Tan Xiao grabbed Daquan's wrist and felt his vitality rapidly flowing away from his body. His divine sense had clearly observed that the broken bones in Daquan's body had pierced through his heart. He shook his head. Tan Xiao turned around and came to the side of the other injured patients. "Doctor, where the hell is the doctor?" Zhu Zi's eyes were bloodshot as he angrily roared. Tan Xiao was examining another injured patient when he heard Zhu Zi's roar. He shook his head and said, "There's no way to save him. His heart was pierced by the broken bones." "Who the fuck are you?" Zhu Zi roared. Tan Xiao's face turned cold. He coldly snorted and said, "I'm grieving for your brother's death. But if you dare to insult me again, I don't mind watching all your brothers die. Get out of the way, else no one will treat them for the time being." Zhu Zi's breathing stagnated and he asked, "Are you a doctor?" "Yes," replied Tan Xiao indifferently. Zhu Zi waved to the other workmates, telling them to step back. Diagnosis. Treatment. Tan Xiao busied himself for 20 minutes and treated all the 3 seriously injured patients. What he could do was to save the lives of the injured. As for their later recuperation and rehabilitation, there was no problem with the hospital. "You're President Zhuge, right? Their lives have been saved. The later recuperation issues will be handed over to the hospital. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." Zhuge Wenfeng had been paying attention to Tan Xiao's consultation and treatment. He couldn't understand Tan Xiao's treatment method. It was too magical. There were Chinese medicine methods, but there were also fields that he didn't understand. Upon hearing that Tan Xiao was about to leave, he hesitated for a moment and then said, "Divine Dr. Tang, can you stay for a while? There are still a lot of injured patients undergoing surgery in the operating room. I'm afraid there will be problems during the operation." Tan Xiao said, "The other doctors are performing the operation, and there will be problems. You want me to do it? What President Zhuge said tactfully, but I know what you're worried about. You're afraid that I won't be able to cure them and will delay their rescue. I'll give you my contact number. You can contact me directly if there's a problem. Zhuge Wenfeng was a bit embarrassed when his thoughts were seen through, but he was a shrewd and experienced person. His embarrassed expression flashed away as he forced a smile and said, Divine Dr. Tang, you misunderstood me. Your medical skills are superb. We've all seen how you treated the injured patients. How could I have such a bad thought? I want you to stay because I wanted to visit you at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital before, but President Li Hongji rejected me. Why did you visit me? Tan Xiao asked with a puzzled expression. Don't you know that you're already a famous medical grandmaster in the medical field? Zhuge Wenfeng said. Not only me, but many people also went to Star City personally and came back disappointed. Tan Xiao frowned and said, President Zhuge, I hope that you won't spread the matter of me treating the injured patients in your first People's Hospital. I'm now studying at the University of Demonic City, so I don't have time to receive others. I don't want to be entangled with trouble. I understand. The other doctors and nurses in our hospital will never spread it out. Don't worry. Zhuge Wenfeng nodded. Tan Xiao nodded. He gave his cell number to Zhuge Wenfeng and quickly left the hospital. Half an hour later, the 5 injured patients who had been treated by Tan Xiao had all been examined by medical instruments. When the report was placed on Zhuge Wenfeng's desk, the doctor in charge of the examination still had a shocked expression on his face. The conditions of the 5 seriously injured patients are stable, and there's no danger to their lives. What's more, the most incredible thing is that one of the injured patients has a lung wound. But the wound is healing very fast. Zhuge Wenfeng picked up the examination report and carefully read it. He couldn't help but sigh and said, He's indeed worthy to be called the young divine doctor, who once caused a sensation in the medical field. I'm left in the dust by his means of treating and saving people. The most obvious feature of these 5 patients is that they've lost a lot of blood. If 2 of them were to be operated and treated by our hospital's doctors, I'm afraid their chances of survival would be less than 10%. The doctor exclaimed in admiration. That's right. Fortunately, he acted today. Otherwise, I'm afraid. Zhuge Wenfeng waved his hand and said, Do you still remember what he said before he left? Since he doesn't want to be famous in our hospital, we can't force him. Don't announce the contents of this report to the public. Also, inform the other doctors and nurses to not talk too much about it. All right. The doctor replied and then turned to leave the office. Sitting on the office chair, Zhuge Wenfeng pondered for a moment before he dialed Li Hongji's cell number. Hello, President Li. I'm Zhuge Wenfeng. President Zhuge, how's the situation on your side? President Li, I have to say something. The medical skills of the young divine doctor, Tan Xiao, are really something I've never seen before in my life. Now I finally understand why he caused such a big sensation, even though he hasn't been working in your Star City Chinese Medical Hospital for a long time. Li Hongji said with a smile. His medical level is naturally very good. To be honest, if he can come to our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital to work every day, I'm willing to give him the position of president. Zhuge Wenfeng's complexion changed as he said with a smile. President Li, how about we talk about it? Isn't Tan Xiao studying at Shanghai University? It's very close to our First People's Hospital. How about you let Tan Xiao come to our hospital to work? As long as you agree, I, Zhuge Wenfeng, will owe you a big favor. Poaching someone? Li Hongji was silent for a while before he forced a smile and said, President Zhuge, it's not that I don't want this favor, but I can't afford it. I've begged Tan Xiao to come to our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital to provide medical services. If he's willing to work in your First People's Hospital, I naturally won't have any objection. Zhuge Wenfeng laughed aloud. President Li, you mean the initiative is in Tan Xiao's hands? Ha! I understand. In any case, I still have to thank you, President Li. When you have time, come to Shanghai and I'll treat you to some good wine. Well said, well said. Li Hongji replied with a few words. In the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's president's office, Li Hongji's complexion turned gloomy the moment he hung up the phone. Zhuge Wenfeng wanting to poach him made him very depressed. But he also knew that he didn't have the qualifications to restrict Tan Xiu's choice. Although he was also a doctor of the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, he had begged him to come here. He was a bit worried. In case Tan Xiu was poached by Zhuge Wenfeng, would Tan Xiu still take a fancy to the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital in the future? How many times could he come here to provide medical services? Damn, I almost missed the update time of Gu Yan's character card on the WeChat public platform. Tomorrow, I'll try my best to write the news about Gu Yan. If you're interested in reading the news and the Immortal World's character card, please pay attention to Quiet Night. Quiet Night will update the news about the Immortal World on it every week, and will interact with each other in a timely manner. Chapter 339. After a long while, Li Hongji dialed Tan Xiu's cell number. After Tan Xiu picked it up, he quickly said with a smile, Tan Xiu, I've heard from Zhuge Wenfeng what you did in Shanghai's First People's Hospital. Well done. You brought honor to our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Tan Xiu was on the way back to the Blue Star Villa complex at this moment. Upon hearing Li Hongji's words, he calmly said, It's nothing. I just happened to meet him and gave him a hand. Li Hongji probed, Tan Xiu, if Zhuge Wenfeng wants you to work in Shanghai's first public hospital, would you be willing to do it? I told you that I won't become a real doctor, said Tan Xiu. I promised to work in your Chinese medical hospital because you took good care of my mother when she was hospitalized there, so I'll return the favor. As for Shanghai's first public hospital, I won't go there. Li Hongji secretly heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, I got it. No one will dare to force you since you don't want to go. If Zhuge Wenfeng wants to find you, just reject him. He just called me and said that he wants to poach me, so I directly told him that you have the right to decide. Presidently, you called me just for this? Tan Xiu said with a smile. Of course. I'm not urging you to come back, said Li Hongji with a smile. Wait until you come back on October 1st, then we'll talk about the consultation. All right. Tan Xiu replied. Blue Star Villa Complex. When Tan Xiu returned to the villa complex's entrance, the security guard, who was somewhat familiar with Tan Xiu, saluted to Tan Xiu and then enthusiastically said, Mr. Tang, you're back. Your friend said that he's waiting for you in the Starbucks cafe on the commercial street next door. Friend? Are you mistaken? Tan Xiu was confused. I just came to Shanghai not long ago, and only a handful of people know that I live here. How could my friend come to see me? The security guard shook his head and said, I don't know. He just wanted me to tell you. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he nodded and thanked him. He was not in a hurry to enter the villa area. Instead, he walked toward the nearby commercial street. He knew where the Starbucks cafe was. It was on the way to Shanghai University from the business district. Starbucks Cafe. The interior was spacious and exquisitely decorated. It was a high-class place to spend money. There were not many customers in the cafe. Apart from a young man who was typing on a laptop keyboard, there were only 4 middle-aged men sitting around the young man. After Tan Xiu stepped into the cafe, he saw Tang Wei, who was typing on his laptop with a cold expression. Why are you here? Tan Xiu walked over to sit opposite Tang Wei and asked calmly. Tang Wei looked up and his eyes lit up upon seeing Tan Xiu. He directly closed his laptop and said with a smile, I was just passing by and learned that you're studying at Shanghai University, so I came to see you. Is it okay here? Tell me what you're lacking. Do you think I'm a poor man? Tan Xiu shook his head and forced a smile. I know you're not a poor man, brother. Tang Wei grinned and said, but this is just a token of my appreciation. That's right. Auntie knows that I'll be passing by Shanghai, so she asked me to bring you something. What is it? Asked Tan Xiu. Tang Wei looked around and said, it's not convenient to give it to you here. All right. Tan Xiu nodded. After the duo got up and left, the 4 middle-aged men followed them. Tan Xiu inquired in private, and learned that the 4 middle-aged men were Tang Wei's bodyguards. After returning to the villa in Blue Star Villa Complex, The 4 bodyguards stayed in the courtyard, while Tan Xiao and Tang Wei went to the hall on the first floor. After taking a seat, Tang Wei handed a suitcase to Tan Xiao and said, "The things Auntie Tangman asked me to bring for you are inside." Tan Xiao took the suitcase and stared blankly after opening it. A silver pistol, for magazines filled with bullets, and an extraordinarily sharp dagger. "What do you mean?" Tan Xiao raised his head and asked with a confused expression. "Our Tang family is in trouble now," said Tang Wei with a forced smile. "Auntie Tangman is afraid that you'll be in danger alone in Shanghai, so she asked me to give these things to you for self-defense. Also, I'll leave 2 of the 4 bodyguards outside for you when I leave. You can rest assured that they'll only protect you in secret and won't affect your normal life." Tan Xiao frowned. After a long silence he asked, "Is the situation very serious now?" "It's not serious." Tang Wei shook his head and said, "Only Guangyang and Fukang are in turmoil. I'm leaving the imperial capital this time to go to Guangyang." "Tell me about the current situation," asked Tan Xiao. "Don't worry," Tang Wei said with a smile. Eldest uncle had already rushed over to Guangyang with his men and temporarily suppressed the crisis. It's just that the Starlight Group that our Tang family secretly controls has been burned. Now a large number of the Starlight Group's HQ's employees are being transferred to the neighboring city. It's already reached this point. Tan Xiao frowned. The Yao family has been secretly preparing for several years, but they haven't acted yet because they haven't reached an agreement with several families in Guangyang and Fukang. Recently, a powerful figure has appeared in the Yao family. After that guy came back from abroad, he brought back several ruthless characters, all of whom are experts in assassination and fighting. Therefore, I don't know what method he used to make those families in Guangyang and Fukang reach an agreement with the Yao family. "What's his name?" asked Tan Xiao. "Yao Xinhua," answered Tang Wei. Tan Xiao closed the suitcase and pushed it to Tang Wei, saying, "Take these things with you. I don't need them. Also, you don't need to leave any bodyguards for me. Let alone the Yao family. Even those martial arts grandmasters in the country can't deal with me. So be it. I'll go with you to Guangyang." Tang Wei stared blankly for a moment before he quickly waved his hand and said, No. It's fine if you don't want to take these things, but don't go with me to Guangyang. If first Grandpa knows that I dragged you into this, he'll definitely break my legs. The old man has spoken to let you study in Shanghai with peace of mind. Even if the sky falls down, our Tang family will support you." Tan Xiao raised his brows and hid the warmth inside his heart. Then he said, "Brother, don't you think that I'm somewhat responsible for the Tang family's mishap? Besides, I don't think staying in school and studying is of much use. Only by experiencing the wind and rain can one grow up quickly." Tang Wei raised his hand to touch his nose and forced a smile. "But first, Grandpa." Tan Xiao interrupted him and said with all seriousness, "I'll talk to Grandpa. The school hasn't officially opened yet, and I've already asked for leave for the military training. I'll take advantage of this time to go with you to Guangyang to see the enemy's means." Tang Wei raised his hand and said, "Then you call first, Grandpa." Tan Xiao took out his mobile and dialed a cell number. "Hello, Xiao?" Tang Guoxing's voice came out of the phone. "Grandpa, it's me," Tan Xiao said. "Xiao, is there something you need from me?" Tang Guoxing said with a smile. "I just met Tang Wei. He's going to Guangyang, so I'm going with him," Tan Xiao said. "Don't worry, I won't act recklessly." Tang Guoxing forced a smile and said, "Xiao, it's very chaotic over there. Last night, several of our family's trusted men were attacked in the hotel. Although it seems like it was a group of local ruffians who attacked them, it was actually that Yao Xinhua kid from the Yao family who led his men to do it. It's too dangerous for you to go to Guangyang now. I have the ability to protect myself, so I won't be careless," Tan Xiao said. Tang Guoxing was silent for a while before he asked, "Have you really decided?" "I've decided," Tan Xiao said with a serious expression. "Since you want to go, then go." Tang Guoxing sighed. "Give the phone to Tang Wei." "All right." Tan Xiao handed the phone over. Tang Wei took the phone and chatted with Tang Guoxing for a while. After hanging up the phone, he said, "Grandpa told me that since you want to go to Guangyang with me, it's not impossible. But you must follow me 24 hours a day. Tan Xiu nodded and said, wait for me for a while. I'm going to pack my things. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu carried his simple luggage and left with Tang Wei. Let's go to Konghang 4S store in Shanghai first. I have something to give to a classmate. Tang Wei nodded and arrived at Konghang 4S store through the GPS inside the store. Yu Kai, Zhao Liang, and the others were surrounding an Audi A4, commenting on it. A staff member was explaining the functions of the Audi A4 to them. Yu Kai. After entering the store, Tan Xiu called out. Yu Kai, who had received a call from Tan Xiu, immediately smiled and trotted a few steps, saying, Big bro Tang, what do you want me to give to Teacher Han? Tan Xiu took out 2 keys and handed him a note saying, give these things to her and help me ask for a leave while you're at it. I won't participate in the military training, and I've already asked for a leave. I'll be back before your military training is over. Yu Kai stared blankly and said with astonishment, you can actually ask for a leave for the military training? Isn't that too awesome? But Big Bro Tang, you mean that you're leaving Shanghai? I do have to leave Shanghai for some time to deal with something, said Tan Xiu. What is it? Asked Yu Kai. Some family matters, said Tan Xiu. All right then. Yu Kai nodded. I'll give them to Teacher Han. But don't forget that since you're not treating me tonight, I'll make up for this big meal later. I will. Tan Xiu nodded. Subsequently, Tan Xiu bid farewell to Zhao Liang, Hu Qingsong, and the others and then left Konghang 4S store. After meeting up with Tang Wei, who was waiting outside, they quickly rushed to the airport. In the taxi, Tang Wei frowned and said, I just checked. There's only one last flight from Shanghai to Guangyang in an hour. It's rush hour now, so I'm afraid we won't be able to get to the airport in advance if we're caught in a traffic jam. It's all right. I've already called in advance to arrange it. Tan Xiu said calmly. I'm really sorry. After the update of Gu Yan'er's character card yesterday, many people were very dissatisfied with the character image of Gu Yan'er after Tan Xiu's death. Then, Jingye stayed up all night to update Gu Yan'er's story and the character image card of Tan Xiu before he fell in the Immortal world. So I overslept and made my brothers and sisters wait for a long time. Thinking that I'll be late for work, Jingye's heart is in a panic. I asked my brothers and sisters to give me 2 monthly tickets to calm my nerves. Thank you very much, _. Chapter 340. Shanghai Airport. Tang Wei followed Tan Xiu with a puzzled expression. He went straight through the VIP channel and came to the tarmac. When he saw the private jet in front of him, he saw 2 men and 4 women standing under the ladder, dressed like pilots and flight attendants. Shock was written all over his face. Now, with the improvement of living standards, a large number of super-rich people emerged in the country, and many of them were buying private jets. But as a descendant of a big family in the country, he was very clear about the number of rich people who own private jets in the country. 1,500. This was the limit. He dared to pat his chest and guarantee that the number of rich people who owned private jets in the country was definitely no more than 1,500. It must be noted that China had a population density of more than 1 billion, and 1,500 was a very small number. But how could Tan Xiu? Hello, Mr. Tang. We have submitted our departure application to Shanghai Airport and received a reply. There are still 35 minutes left before our departure, said the private jet pilot respectfully. Let's board the plane. Tan Xiu nodded. Tang Wei, who was following beside Tan Xiu, looked surprised and asked in a low voice, What's going on, brother? Where did you get this private jet? I borrowed it from a friend, replied Tan Xiu with a smile while walking up the ladder. What kind of friend is this? How could he be so generous? Lend a private jet to you at will? If my guess is correct, this private jet should have been parked at Shanghai Airport, right? It's a friend from Jingmen Island. I've been quite busy recently, so I directly borrowed this private jet, said Tan Xiu. I'll return it to her when I'm not busy for some time. Tang Wei praised. It seems that your relationship is really good. This brother who lent you the jet is really worth making friends with. Brother? She's a woman. Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Tang Wei stared blankly and incredulously said, "A woman? Then she and you. A friend?" Tan Xiao said straightforwardly. Tang Wei frowned slightly and pondered for a moment before probing. "As far as I know, there aren't many clans in Shanghai that own private passenger planes. There were only 2 women who owned a private jet. I'm afraid it will be very difficult to borrow the private jet of that old lady from the Huang family. Could it be the friend you were talking about? Is it the demoness who barged into our ancestral home in the imperial capital?" Tan Xiao asked curiously. "Demoness?" Tang Wei heavily nodded and said, "That's right, Ouyang Lulu the witch. Barbaric, violent, condescending, arrogant, proud like a peacock, raising its tail all day long." Tan Xiao was at a loss whether to cry or laugh as he listened to Tang Wei's adjectives. After entering the cabin, he grinned and asked, "Do you have enmity with Lulu? It really is her." Tang Wei took a deep breath and bitterly smiled. "I don't have enmity with her, but I've suffered a few losses in her hands. Of course, it's also because I'm a good man and don't fight with women, so I let her have her way. Besides, cousin Chu Yi is her old classmate and they have a good relationship, so I don't have a bad relationship with her. Lulu is actually a good person," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "She's not as exaggerated as you said. She's a bit unruly, but she's very smart and easy to bully." Easy to bully? Tang Wei was speechless. After the 2 of them took a seat at the airport, Tang Wei casually gestured to the 4 bodyguards who followed him and said, "Ouyang Lulu came to our ancestral home last time, but we didn't have much interaction because of you. But I can see that she likes you." Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment, and directly rolled his eyes. He couldn't understand why so many people liked to make wild guesses. In the University of Shanghai, Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong said that Han Qinggu liked him, and now Tang Wei said that Ouyang Lulu liked him. How come he didn't know that he was so charming? "Don't talk nonsense. We're just good friends and business partners." An unfathomable smile appeared on Tang Wei's face as he meaningfully looked at Tan Xiao and directly turned his head to the side. 7:30 p.m. The private plane landed at Guangyang's Guan City Airport. Since Tang Yumping knew that Tang Wei was coming, he had arranged someone to pick them up. When Tan Xiao and Tang Wei walked out of the airport with 4 bodyguards, they saw a middle-aged woman with 6 strong men in black suits quickly greeting them. "Little Wei." The middle-aged woman looked at Tan Xiao, and then looked at Tang Wei with a smile. "Aunt Shui, why did you personally come to pick us up?" Tang Wei said with a smile. "Guan City is a bit chaotic here. Your first uncle is afraid that the Yao, Sun, and Yang families will send people to deal with you in secret. We've lost more than 20 people since they started to launch an attack." An angry expression appeared on Tang Wei's face as he said in a deep voice, "The Yao family is our enemy, but I didn't expect that the Sun and Yang families would dare to get involved. This time, we must give them a head-on blow even if we have to suffer heavy losses." Shuejie secretly smiled wryly inside. Tang Wei might not know, but she was the general manager of the Starlight Group and had been here for more than a decade. How could she not be aware of the current situation? Let alone a head-on blow, it would be a problem for her own people to protect themselves. "Who is this?" "He's Tan Xiao, my cousin," said Tang Wei quickly. A surprised expression appeared on Shuejie's face as she carefully observed Tang Xiao a few times. Then she let out a smile and said, "I heard that the Tang family's lost child has been found, but I didn't expect that he would come to Guan City. Hello, Tan Xiao." "I'm Shuejie, the general manager of the Starlight Group. You can call me Aunt Shui." "Brother, Aunt Shui is the elder sister of Uncle Tang Dong's wife," said Tang Wei quickly. Tan Xiao suddenly understood and called out, "Hello, Aunt Shui." Shuejie nodded with a smile and said, "Let's go. Your first uncle is waiting in the Red Maple Villa complex." "All right." Tang Wei nodded. More than 20 minutes later, when the car was about to arrive at the Red Maple Villa complex, Shuejie's mobile phone rang. When she picked up the call and spoke a few words to the other party, her expression suddenly turned gloomy. Tang Wei waited until Shuejie hung up the phone and quickly asked, "Aunt Shui, what happened?" The deputy director of our Starlight Group's finance department was taken away. Shuejia nodded. The other party deliberately provoked him, causing the deputy director to push him. Then the other party pretended to be seriously injured and wanted the deputy director's family to compensate. Was it done by the Yao family? Tang Wei angrily asked. It's definitely related to the Yao family, said Shuejia. After all, only the Shui family, Sun family, and Yang family would instigate people to do such a thing at this critical juncture. Just now, your uncle told me to send someone to rescue that deputy supervisor. That's because the deputy director of the finance department is very clear about our Starlight Group's accounts. If those trade secrets were to be obtained by the Yao family, it would be very disadvantageous to us. Where is the deputy director of the finance department taken? Asked Tang Wei quickly. Chengbu Town Earth Cabinet Factory, said Shuejia. Are we going to change our route to Chengbu Town now? Asked Tang Wei. Let's go there now. Shuejia nodded. We must rescue the deputy director in the shortest time possible. Also, your first uncle has also sent another group of people to Chengbu Town. Is the source of the news reliable? Tan Xiu suddenly asked. Is it from our people's investigation? Or? Shuejia turned to look at Tan Xiu and said, it's the people who took the deputy director. They told his family the place where they will hand over the money and the person. If my guess is correct, this is probably a trap. Tan Xiu shook his head. Moreover, it's a place where we know it's a trap, yet we still have to jump into it. I think that the deputy director is definitely not in Chengbu Town's Earth Cabinet Factory. Tell me the reason, asked Shuejia with slightly furrowed brows. Since the other party wants to get the financial information of the Starlight Group from the deputy supervisor of the finance department, they won't let us rescue him too easily, said Tan Xiu. Moreover, the other party knows that we will definitely go and rescue them. Even if the deputy manager is a bait, they won't take the risk and leave the deputy manager there. One piece of information is enough to lure us over. Shuejia narrowed her eyes. She was able to control the entire Starlight Group. Regardless of whether it was in terms of intelligence or ability, she was outstanding. In fact, she had also thought of the problems that Tan Xiu had analyzed. However, she had no choice but to bring people to Chengbu Town, and she couldn't just sit back and watch. Tan Xiu, since you're able to guess this possibility, why don't you give it to me? Do you have any ideas? It's very simple. We still have to go to Chengbu Town, said Tan Xiu. But he couldn't be impatient. He had to find out the internal situation of the Earth Cabinet Factory first, and then formulate a plan of action. On the other hand, mobilize all our forces in Guangyang to find the place where that deputy director might be imprisoned. Our intelligence channels in Guangyang are almost cut off, said Shuejia with a forced smile. Although we still have a lot of manpower here, we don't have a direction to investigate. We can't be like headless flies running around everywhere, right? For a moment, Tan Xiu was silent. He then took out his mobile and dialed a cell number. Who is it? A deep and low voice came from the phone. I'm Tan Xiu. Gu Xiaoxue gave me your number, said Tan Xiu. With a bit of excitement in his tone, the other party quickly said, Gu Xiaoxue? The little boss of the Everlasting Feast Hall? Yes. I got it. You're the new boss of the Everlasting Feast Hall, Mr. Tan Xiu Tang, right? It's me. You're looking for me for what? Does your family have any intelligence channels in Guangyang? Asked Tan Xiu. I need to trouble you to help me investigate something. Which city? Guan City. Yes. Tan Xiu said. I'll send you a text message later to tell you the identity of the person I'm investigating. He was taken away by someone, and the other party may be related to the Sun and Yang families here. Pay attention to concealment when you investigate. Alright, I'll immediately rush to Guan City. Wait for my news. You don't need to come personally. Just pass down the order. I'm afraid there are still some things I need to trouble you with later. It's not troublesome at all. It's what we should do. The number of followers on the WeChat official account is about to break through 2,000. Brothers and sisters, please continue to work hard. Once the number of followers breaks through 2,000, The Quiet Night Society will continue to rain red packets for 2 days. The Quiet Night Society will update the news in the Immortal world on it every week, and we will interact with them in a timely manner. There will also be an irregular rain of red packets _. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.